Dylan too. Dylan's exposing.
So did my name just get out there then, Dylan?
Did your dick just get out there? I
Dylan.
don't believe so.
Oh
Look,
my
you know what? Maybe I should have sent something, but I didn't. I forgot my streamers.
What's going on?
I am here, everyone, and so you are on stream. Just saying hi.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Hello.
I'll transfer you all to the private room, and then we'll get started. Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
Is anyone else in the video room? Yep.
We meet again, last username.
All right. So now I will join the thing.
I'm waiting on the reply to get into the whereby.
Oh, that's right. You guys can't get in now. Okay. That's new. Yeah, because I finally bought my own thing. 1 second, guys.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? Last username.
Super. Super.
Okay. I will let in. See who. Okay. Let in. Let in. Let in. Let in. Let in. Let in. Okay. All right. I think we're still waiting for a few people. Maybe not. Hold on. All right. What's this? All right. Or maybe I think one person might have dropped out.
North, yeah.
Yeah.
To come off of Deafen now?
Yeah, you can come off.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have no idea what I stumbled into there.
Sorry.
You didn't even need to deafen, it turns out, because Dylan was also exposing everybody. So like,
Thanks, Dylan.
Look,
Wait. Okay, I was tabbed. Who said that? Who made that remark?
Rob.
Me. I've never met you.
How did you know? Or I'm sorry. Why did you make that remark?
Because as a fat guy, I was trying to deflect from a possible fat joke. So I was like, oh, I thought it was a blind joke. That's all. I don't know you from anyone.
I'm a fucking idiot. I read way more into that than I was supposed to.
Yeah, well, you know.
So, do you want to turn your camera, LSP?
It's not on?
We don't see you.
How do I
At
turn
least
it on?
I don't see you.
Hang on.
Hit the,
I don't think oh, the cam button's like muted.
Okay, there you go. Awesome. Nice to have you there. All right, awesome. Okay, well, I guess that's the best I
Andrew
can
Nax
arrange.
judges me for being fat, but he's really young.
No, I'm not. Hey, man, you know what? You're beautiful as you are.
Hey, you know what, buddy? You are too. I like your hair.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's what we're missing. We're missing
You
Danabo.
got the tie back. You gotta go. You look so good on the casual when you were doing the casual stream the other day, Endernax.
Me? Oh, well,
Come
look.
on, the tie.
We're
on stream.
I was
What
just
is this, a
streaming.
business
I just
boardroom?
got done. Dylan made me rate him. Dylan, okay, he's not here right now, so actually I can expose him for the. Okay, he told me, Endernax, you have to end your stream right now and host me because I'm trying to get partner.
Anyway, thank you all for being here. Yeah, we got a wide array here. Thank you, every single one of you. So this is the Reverie podcast. I'm not sure if I. Why do people call it podcast? I don't know, the Reverie Roundtable. This is the Reverie Roundtable, and we'll be doing this. I guess this is our sixth show, and we have an awesome cast that have been kind enough to join us, and I'm really excited to get started with all of them. Okay, I guess I'll go around the room introducing you. Up here at the top, we have LSP, a Liberal Sanity Project, I believe, right? How are you, LSP? How are you doing?
I'm tired.
Well, great. It's a good way to get things started. LSP was here previously, but that conversation got derailed pretty heavily. So I definitely wanted to make it up to LSP. And hopefully we can have a really robust conversation where everyone gets to be involved.
Thank you. I'll raise my hand like a good boy, like last time.
Yeah, like you were raised properly. Thank you. Okay. Then next we have our good buddy, the homie, Dylan Burns. How are you, Dylan Burns?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing decent. It seems to be my last day of my partner run. I've hit the 100 on every day, but today I fell short. It looks like today's gonna be the last day of the partner run. We had a good run, boys, but 20's a decent number. We'll try to hit it better next time. I appreciate it. But I'm having a decent day. You know, I had some Takis earlier. They were yummy. But yeah, everything's pretty okay.
Okay, fantastic. I'm happy to have you here as always. And yeah, dude, you're gonna get like partner pretty easily, I think, with the numbers you've been doing.
I don't know about that.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Were you turned down for it?
Well, no, is that you're supposed to get like over 75 average for every day, and I've been hitting it out of the park for since the 4th, and I've been hoping like every weekend that I'm gonna get the email, and it never comes, and then I've just been stretching the viewership out for so long that today I missed it by a mile.
Let me put it another way. Is Soma back on the table?
It might be in a little bit. I gotta wait for the rejection, but I'm pretty sure since I missed today pretty hard, it's probably like I'm done.
Sorry, Prime. This was way more important. Soma's way more important.
Well, dude, yeah, I really hope you get it. You certainly just have. You've been grinding really hard. I've seen your numbers rise and rise. So yeah, I really hope you get it, buddy. And next is Rob. How are you, Rob?
Doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm missing the RNC, but that's okay. I don't mind.
Will it be so? I haven't watched much of the DNC, and I don't plan to watch much of the RNC. I'll just like get the highlights. Do you think you'd be missing much? Like, is it going to be?
No, like I thought the DNC was terrible, but let me just say that I think a lot of it has to do with kind of the new world we have without a live audience. It just seems inorganic, and I'm assuming the RNC will have a lot of that. Even if I like the message more than the DNC, it's, you know, I think you're starting to see people try to work through kind of the new technology and how to do things without a live audience. So it wasn't that great though. I don't know if other people disagree.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know. From what I saw from DNC, it was actually pretty lackluster and completely forgettable. And I don't expect much from the RNC, honestly, unless it's a utter clusterfuck. All right, thanks for the follows, guys. All right, next is Demon Mama Live. How are you?
Doing good.
Were you on our first one? You might have been on our first one. I'm not sure. Maybe our second one.
I think it was on one of the early ones, yeah.
Yeah. This has only been like number 6, so it's not there's not many options there. But yeah, thank you for coming back. I'm glad we could entice you back to the podcast, or whatever. I'm not sure what to call this thing.
We're streamers. It's a panel.
It's a panel. I only call it podcast because Dylan calls his a podcast, so I don't know. I figure that's what it's supposed to be.
I am a podcaster.
Next is our good buddy last, whose name who my audience should be very familiar with. He pops into my channel often, and he always is exciting, I think. Stimulates conversation, whether I want to or not, but he's always there for us. I'm always happy when he shows up. Thank you for being here again with us last Tuesday.
Good to be here. I am last_username. You're a run-of-the-mill liberal anarchist Canadian, and coming here to offer that perspective, respectively.
Thank you. Next, Danabo. Hey, Danabo, how are you doing today?
What's up, everyone? I'm okay. Today's the first day of school for my kids. I'm extremely exhausted, but happy to be here. I saw my fellow Mayo 6 member North the Mage dipped out, so I thought I would step in. Ill-prepared, but ready to fight some people.
Ill-prepared, like a proper political streamer. Yep. Yeah. Now you're ship shape when you have no idea what's going on. But thank you for helping us out, for stepping in. Yeah, North Mage was going to be here, but he ran into some issues, and hopefully we'll have him on a future appearance.
Some issues, yeah. He's on a private server for Burning Crusade issues. Yeah. I'll
Okay.
call him out, pretending his power's out. He's playing well. That's what he's doing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I have no comments.
All I'll say is the only thing I know last season North of Mage 4 is never doing a last second cancellation. That's for damn
No,
sure.
he'd never do that.
Never,
No,
never,
no.
never.
Never.
Hey, Dario, thanks for the raid. Oh, sorry. Oops.
Oh no, that's fine. And yeah, that's never also happened on my channel. From that particular person. But again, we'll be happy to have them in the future. At some point. Next, we have finally, I guess we have Endernax, and Endernax, who is definitely well known to my audience. He always comes on bringing the hot takes and the charm, and has his own stream now that's been blowing up recently. Always happy to have Endernax here. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. I noticed for some reason for like the last 3 panels, everyone has this habit. I swear, I'm always chosen last. Not like for every single time. Every single time it's like closing statements or opening statements. Maybe I'm just fucking with my own head or something. Anyways, I just wanted to shout out my homie Dylan Burns. I'm really sad that this is the end of his quest. I hope it is not. But he came into my chat like a true authoritarian, or rather, like a true authoritarian. He sent his own minions to my chat, demanded I go offline, and sent him my 50 viewers. So, like a good plebeian, I immediately followed and I rated Dylan Burns. I just want to wish you the best of luck. I hope things turn around, my guy.
I mean, if I can get over 75 viewer average for today, then I can pull out and keep on the fight to tomorrow. I'm just waiting for the one mailer because they're supposed to get back to me in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been past 2 weeks. So now I'm fighting on endlessly, just waiting for one Twitch staff member to look at my review, because every day that keeps going, there's another chance for me to miss that 75 mark. So that Dario raid's really going to help. And anybody else who would, I'd really appreciate it. Because today's just, I drawn on a Frenchman on my show, and I think that's why my viewership's down. So I will not make that mistake again.
Yeah, anyone who can, please give Dylan Burns a follow, or not follow, a raid, please. Help him out, guys. And if you know a streamer, to my audience members, if you know a streamer who might be willing to raid Dylan, pop into the channel, help him out, and then come back here. I can use numbers as well. I put in my partner application, and I don't know. I'm not very hopeful at this point. Because if Dylan can't make it, then my numbers aren't ready for it yet either. But yeah. And to Endernax, yeah. I rearranged this so that you're at the top here.
Oh no! You're fine. No, it wasn't even you. It was like Dylan Burns and you and Tiberius. It was really weird. It like keeps happening. It's not individual choice. I wasn't complaining. I promise. Okay. I was just like, yeah.
Speaking last is good.
Okay.
That's what you want.
We'll start a petition to get you an invite. Hey Tiberius, how are you? Thank you for being here. Okay, so I guess we'll just get started. Gotta remember what my I feel like I always forget the topics like right beforehand. Like I go completely blank, so I have to actually read them off. All right. So topic 1. Since there is no legal obligation for the Democratic Republican Party to adhere to the items included in their political platforms, should that factor into a voter's decision when casting a ballot? So yeah, in terms of each party, right? They put out these platforms. It's a list of issues for those of you who may not know. A platform is a list of issues and a list of priorities that party says is important. Sometimes they have solutions. Sometimes they're just saying, well, this is a bad thing, we're going to call out. In any case, the priorities that they have there they're not legally bound to them at all. And so, but you see that, especially in the news media, these things get called out and are given spotlights. But if they're not bound to follow them, then does it even matter at all? Like, should a voter, should you care if the Democratic Party, for instance, put it in its platform that we're going to decriminalize marijuana, and but like they're not obligated to actually follow that factor in at all into your decision. So I'm going to open up to the panel. Everyone, just anyone first wants to jump in?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so once again, I assert my dominance over Andronax like a true alpha. I just gotta do it. But look, my thing is, of course, it should come into your political calculations, but you need to like work in the reality of politics. That okay, everybody buckle in. Rob, Demon Mama, everybody buckle. Sit. Okay, last username. You might need to sit down for this one. Politicians lie. I know it's a shocker. I know you all expected Donald Trump and Joe Biden to be the most truthful individuals on the planet. I'm sorry, everybody in politics is not Mr. Rogers. I'm sad to say. They do lie, and a lot of them lie to get in office because they want to be the most powerful people on the planet. Now, I think it's a combination of knowing that when you look at percentages, there's a certain percent of promises that are made that are usually kept. If you look at data, I forget the exact percentages, but you would want to cross-reference that data with somebody's record on an issue and how the situation changes and their interests at play. Here's a great example. When looking at someone like Joe Biden, you would look at their healthcare plan. You would look at what their record on healthcare has been, what administrations they were a part of. In that administration, what was their stance on healthcare? How has the situation changed since then? And what is their current position? And you'd leverage all of these together to figure out what their position would be. Here, and a lot of times it's really complicated. And when you're pulling that lever to vote for someone, when you look at the different sides that are weighing on whether they're being truthful with their position or going to change on it once they get in office, you kind of have to like put it against each other. Here's one for me that actually took a lot of mental math. For instance, I think Joe Biden is genuinely, and of course I don't know this for certain, but I think he's genuinely going to stop arming the Saudi regime and fighting in Yemen. And the reason why is even though he was part of the administration that started the funding, the situation has changed so drastically on the ground in Yemen after 5 years of fighting when they were told it was going to be a 6-month-long war, plus the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and then add the fact that he chose a VP who was also against arming the Saudis, and that is against his specific strategic interests and what he has stated for years now. I think that weighs together for me to be able to say, okay, I think that's his position. So you need to actually look at the general bigger picture. You can't just take politicians at face value. We need to be adults here.
All right, yeah, Dylan went on for a bit there, so I've got lost. But let's go back to the question. Since there is no legal obligation for the Democratic or Republican Party to adhere to the items included in their political platforms, should that factor into a voter's decision when casting a ballot? Absolutely. There is something called the broken promise myth, where the public perception of the parties is that they don't adhere to their promises. But the vast majority of the time, the parties do adhere to their political platforms. This is especially true in Western democracy, with single-party systems, where the majority party will get most of their promises through. This is less true in American democracy, where they still get a majority of their promises through, but not quite as much as a single-party system. And then it goes further down with a coalition government, which even as it still gets the majority of their promises through, but far fewer broken promises than would be perceived. So absolutely vote for the party based on their political platform. I could bring up studies to show you this data. You can Google it, go for it.
But you seem to be making an argument against considering the political platform. If America is so bad...
No, they're not bad. They're particularly good.
But the American system makes it very difficult to actually carry through on their promises. And at the same time...
No. It makes it less effective than a single-party system. It's still more effective than a coalition government, but generally still effective.
Okay.
So, I don't know if we're going around and everybody's doing like an introductory or if we're just free-for-all. Okay, so it's free-for-all. Yeah, I mean, I think that... by and large, political platforms should be taken with a grain of salt by the average voter, not just because the definition of what keeping a promise is difficult to organize, but also because we have limited ability to actually hold politicians and parties to their platform in a system that's basically first past the post. So my main critique is, I wouldn't say that a political platform is completely irrelevant. I think it should be measured. I think that a political platform or a party platform are most effective at sort of giving a snapshot of where the sort of Overton window is for a specific party, of what's acceptable and what they believe is like a fair range of things to advocate and push for. However, I think that the efficacy of that it falls a little bit when you have as polarized of a media as we do, and also when you have a first past the post system that allows for really powerful like a really extreme power consolidation. So what I would advocate for most voters is to be aware of and acknowledge that your party platform is a snapshot of where the mindset of the dominant members of the party are right now, and use that to factor your sort of future political engagement. Not so much as a should I vote for this person or not, because oftentimes, as we know in first past the post systems, it comes down to the two dominant parties smashing into one another. But use that to inform your politics beyond the vote. So if a platform is, in the case of Biden, for example, not nearly left enough to be representative of the actual members of the party, the actual voting members of the party, use that to pressure and to organize around those weaknesses. And in the case of like the Republican Party, I mean, the Republican Party, as I understand it, has refused to actually put forward a platform this time, and has instead accepted a document directly from Donald Trump's administration, which includes things like fighting, resisting globalism and pushing American exceptionalism in schools. These things, I think, should be a warning sign of where the state, where the mental state and the sort of thought leadership of a party is at any given moment. So yeah, use them as a point of guidance, but not necessarily as your main decider for why you vote.
Okay, I'll go to LSP. Rob, you have your hand up, so Rob next then. All right.
Yeah, fuck you, Dylan. I kind of want to like interrogate your position, because broadly I tend to agree with like what Dylan said. But I'm wondering, like, it's because you're further on the left side than most people. I think it's a fair characterization of your politics, right?
True. Yeah.
Generally, you're not going to get anything out of the parties that you actually do want. But let's just change the entire equation. So you get nothing. They promise whatever they promise you, you're never going to get it because they're not catering to you. Is it valuable for people like you to still vote for them, or would you say that they don't represent your interests at all? Or like, I mean, because this is like, you have to cast this in light of like the Donald Trump kind of figure, right?
Well, I would say it's all situational.
Wait, that was the Demon Mama, Dylan.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. You said
No,
fuck you, Dylan.
Yeah, you said Dylan.
Oh, I said
I thought you did.
fuck you, Dylan. I didn't say well, no, fuck you, Dylan, because I was talking and then I cut you off. I was asking Demon Mama, who's further left. Of course, Dylan finds some agreement with the Democratic Party, but like Demon Mama, hypothetically, like if the party gave people like you nothing, which I assume you're further on the left than most people, so how do you square this for the far left, like Buster types who say the parties forsake my interests every which way, even when there's like a fascist figure like standing opposite? Like where do you fall in this, and how do you reconcile this position?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I see it is that anybody who considers themselves like a leftist or further left than the Democratic Party should recognize that the current interests in the Democratic Party do not have their political goals in mind. However, that they may be or in this case, very clearly are a less dangerous option than the opposition. And therefore, that's why I say that like a party platform shouldn't be, in my mind, used to decide your vote, but rather to understand like what's going on in the upper, or a snapshot of what's acceptable in the upper leadership. Right.
Can I twist this?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Is it more? Let me try it this way. Is it more viable to expand the size of the tent in the Democratic Party, or is it only strategic for you? And so, the second another option comes along, it's worth dividing that vote.
I mean, I think that's a tough question. Honestly, if the Democratic Party was able to expand, I mean, I think it's pretty measurable that certain points that they have on their current platform are incredibly weak, even considering the constitution of their party, which to me, there's a lot of, we could go into a long conversation about how I think the Democratic Party is organized and influence the number of sort of big dollar donors that have direct influence on the policy positions of the party. But I think that it is certainly conceivable that the Democratic Party could open up the tent more and actually have a lot of success. Whether they will do that is really hard to predict. For me, I consider largely electoral participation to be a matter of raw political strategy, and that leftists and people who consider themselves further left than the Democratic Party should look to other means of political engagement than just voting. I don't believe that
should they do this even if it hurts the rest of the country? Because I mean, that's ultimately what you're going to get. Like the
I don't know.
Republicans are always going to be united on this front. Like the only way you're going to like.
I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, I feel like you're jumping a number of steps. Like, there's no contradiction between casting a vote for a candidate that's going to do less harm to the country, and pushing for things that will do objective good for the country. So
I'd also like to defend Demon Mama's point here, because actually, like, having been involved in party politics, she's completely right. There's always going to be competing factions, and even in the Republican Party, you could point to the Tea Party, you could point to the Lincoln Party, or I'm sorry, the Lincoln Foundation right now compared to the Donald Trump, the Never Trumpers. There's all sorts of different competing ideologies in the Republican Party. There's the Ron Paul libertarian wing who just wants to like abolish the Fed. This exists in every party, and I mean, you could see it clearest in the what is it, the New Democrats. The New Democrats is literally just a super PAC to promote moderate Democrats as like hip and cool to kids, because they're terrified that all of these young kids are being radicalized. Yeah, and they make it well known that they're going to influence the party. They do things like the New Democrats were the #1 funder for the Young Democrats of America's national convention in 2019. Okay, like they I don't know. I don't see any reason why leftists shouldn't engage at the grassroots level when they can't engage monetarily like the other groups are doing. It makes no sense.
I want to let in Rob Noor.
Yeah, so real quick, I'll get to some of that specifically. Real quick, one thing I just wanted to mention is there's sometimes a difference between a party platform and an individual person running for that party. For example, in rural Pennsylvania, where I'm at, many of the Democrats that run for local election, you wouldn't consider them Democrats because they believe in bigger kind of taxation, more social programs, but they're pro-life, they're pro-Second Amendment, things like that. So there's always, you have to look specifically what a person's saying as a candidate, what they're specifically doing versus what the platform for the party they're running at. So you got to make a decision between that. But I think that one thing that we were kind of getting to there is that it's not just what people say. I think that everyone can vote for whatever reason they want. But for me, I try to intuit what people really think through their actions and through who they associate by, in addition to what they're saying. So, for example, we could pretend that the Democrats, they're the party of peace, yet they have a bunch of neocons speaking at their convention. We could pretend that the Democrats are the party of the poor, yet the wealthiest Americans are the ones that are the financial backbone of them. And oftentimes what we see is that the promises made in a platform are actually just thrown out by the establishment in both sides that basically just want to maintain power. So your Mitt Romneys and your Joe Bidens are basically in the same boat where they complain about stuff every 4 years. They're going to help the inner city. They're going to solve illegal immigration. And then they don't do anything. And they just give policies that help their wealthy donors on both sides of the aisle. The last thing I'll say is this. I hope that we could all come together to understand this. As long as there are unelected bureaucrats that really run this country that can engage in a coup against a candidate or the president of the United States, then it doesn't matter what your issue is. Your vote doesn't matter because there are unelected officials that you better just hope share the views that you have, or they'll just ruin your candidate or your president through spying, through other such things like we saw the coup against Donald Trump.
All right, can I bring this back again? Because this has gone off on a weird tangent where we're criticizing the DNC platform and how the American political system works in the first place.
Thank you.
Once again, should the party's political platform factor into whether you should cast your vote for them? Yes.
Yes.
Because they keep their promises based on the political platform. So is this now a question about whether you agree with the DNC platform or not? Or
well, it's a question, I guess, of whether or not what do you do when you disagree, or what sort of action do you take in regards to your rejection of it?
You don't vote for them. If you don't agree with the platform, don't vote for them.
That's not exactly how the world works, though. A lot of the times, I mean, I can imagine there's a lot of people who maybe don't agree with almost anything on the Democratic platform who are going to vote for a Democrat.
You don't agree with any of their platform policies, but you'd vote for them.
I didn't say I would.
Well,
I mean, I would argue that there are a lot of
because
people
the
who would do
alternative
that.
is Donald Trump.
Let me give you an example. I would vote for someone whose
Again,
policies I disagreed with if I thought they legitimately cared about the average person more than I would vote for someone who shared policies with me, but that I thought was cynical and didn't care about the average person. So in that context, the platform's not all that matters.
So it's a gut feeling or something, right? You would
right. Like, for example, like I feel I don't agree with a lot of Tulsi Gabbard's policies, though it's kind of her non-interventionism I agree, but she seems like a pretty genuine person. So I would put her ahead even of a lot of Republicans that I think are cynical. Now, having said that, Tulsi was
always vote with the party platform. Always. It doesn't matter about the personality of the person. You vote with the platform. You vote with the policies you want to get pushed through. That's what's going to happen.
I would just vote for Tulsi because I have a Coomer brain, but that's just me. Anyways,
okay.
That's the truth.
I did want to highlight the fact that this should be like mentioned for a brief second, that there is also the fact that a lot of the times the reason certain parties can't implement platforms is because we don't live in a one-party state. It's not like you get in there and you're just like, we're gonna pass all of our bills. There's an opposition.
That's the difference, single-party system.
For example, Obama promised to close Guantanamo Bay, and he did everything within his power to close Guantanamo Bay. He did an executive order. There's not much more he could have done than an executive order, but they targeted the funding of the operation he would have had to do to transfer prisoners. And so throughout his administration, he had to he actually did two executive orders. Sorry, he did two separate executive orders to close Guantanamo Bay. So he slowly had to transfer prisoners out there. That was a campaign promise. Even though he slowly transferred prisoners out there, he did not fulfill. But that wasn't due to a lack of will from President Barack Obama. But you could maybe like leverage that on some Democrats who didn't vote with him on that. But that there's not much blame you could put on Obama for that specific operation.
Let me ask you, Dan, did I get your name right? Because I don't see your name written. Is that it?
Yeah, Dan, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let me ask you this. Would you vote for someone because you agreed with their platform if you knew that they were going to engage in like incredible criminality when they're in office?
Well, this is a question about the Democratic or Republican Party's political platform. It's not about an individual politician. So absolutely, I'd vote for the party with the best platform.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Like everyone's going to get. Then the question's like. Then I guess move on to the next topic. If the question is, should you consider what people are pushing when you vote? Yeah, but that's not the only thing you would consider. At least not.
Yeah,
to me.
if we want to change the question and move on to something a bit different.
We really should. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on this.
Okay, fair enough. All right, then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say on, before we move to the other topic is just that personally, I think that in a two-party first past the post system, the importance of party platforms is a little bit diminished, simply because of the fact that it ends up being a gambit between the lesser of two evils for many people.
Wait, can I want to interrogate this. Okay, well, because Danabo brought up that this first past the post system with a two-party government seems to be more effective than coalition-based governments in getting its agenda passed. Yep. Would you favor this? Would you favor a coalition system even if it was less efficient and got less change done?
Well, if it was less efficient at accomplishing a single party platform, if it meant for more democratic representation and a chance for people to actually have their voices and broader political viewpoints to be heard, absolutely.
Yeah, but more democratic representation just means like society comes to a standstill. We're never going to be.
Not necessarily. That's not necessarily true. There like expediency isn't the only thing that you measure when you're talking about the efficacy of a political system. Just because a party platform, like I don't believe parties should be able to ram through whatever their political agenda is. I think that they should be checked and balanced. I think right now we actually have a very weak system of checks and balances, as has been shown by Donald Trump's behavior in this entire campaign cycle. But that's neither like here nor there for this point. I just think that that you would have a more accurate say as an individual voter, because again, the question was about individual voters. I think that in a coalition system or a parliamentary system, or even just a system with multiple parties, you would have a much higher chance of having your actual views reflected by a party and therefore heard on a political level, even in a system that maybe is less overall efficacious at slamming through a political agenda.
None of it won't matter if we have a
So-
two-party or a coalition if we have
Well,
unelected
so
bureaucrats that could
I
spy
I disagree.
on or
I think
engage in a
it's
coup.
I don't know.
So-
Like, I
alright.
think there's huge problems with the discussion about like so-called unelected bureaucrats. I think that those could be a problem in any system.
Yeah.
So.
So, two things. First, Rob, your camera is like frozen. It's been like freezing in and out. Just so you
Oh,
know.
that's just what he looks like. He just
Yeah.
looks like that normally.
I'm insulted. Let me see if I can
Very
fix it.
still.
He's still very still. Very calm guy.
Based on movement.
Okay. If you need to refresh the page, that's fine. You need to do that. Okay, so we'll move on to the next topic, and hopefully, hold on. Oh, that's right. I'm gonna have to let him back in as soon as he appears.
I'm still
Okay,
here,
that's fine.
audio.
Well,
I'll be good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So so the next topic 2. If a politician believes in creationism rather than evolution, should that disqualify them from public office?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, not
Is
legally.
everyone going to say no?
Serious. We're all going to agree that the answer, the solution is going to be that stupid.
Well,
is
it's because
for
you
the
start
voters to just vote
discriminating
for
based
somebody
on
better, right?
religious views, right? It's not like they're basing it off of their religious textbook. So you're going to start discriminating based on religious views. All of a sudden, like people who believe in creationism can't run for office. See, it's pretty blatant violation of the Constitution. Come on.
I mean, I
There's no
think there
reason
are
to
some.
discriminate based on any views because we have elections to decide whether people like the views of the person or not. You know, you
And
don't
now
know.
we have QAnoners in Congress. Hell yeah, brother! I can't wait.
Yeah. So I mean,
think-
I want to make it clear. I mean, from a verse perspective, not like the government says that you can't run for office, right? So, like, should a person, when they're evaluating them
Yes.
as a voter, like,
Yes.
should it be disqualified? Maybe I was unclear on that. I'm sorry.
oh,
I'm
yeah,
asking,
yeah,
do you
yeah.
believe in creationism or not?
If I'm advocating for individual voters rather as like a systemic like standard, absolutely I would urge any voter to weigh voting for a young Earth creationist and anti-evolutionist very carefully, because it indicates their stance on sort of on objective science, which I think is actually important. Like, otherwise you run into issues of why not have a flat earther? Why not have people who are like anti-vax or anti-medicine? And those become huge objective factual problems for the health and well-being of a nation. So to an individual voter, no, like please don't vote for young Earth creationists unless you have really good reason for it. And but yeah.
What she said.
Okay.
So-
I'll go, Dylan.
Okay, so yeah, no, I disagree with Demon Mama on this. I would vote for a creationist. I would most definitely vote for a creationist. I know a lot of creationists who are devout Democrats and believe Medicare for all, believe in all these things, and they have no interest in changing the educational platform of the United States to shape into the religious views whatsoever. My thing when voting for somebody who is a creationist would just genuinely be like, okay, you're a creationist. How would that affect your political platform if they're like, well, that means I believe, get rid of all the science, fuck the science, we're gonna not teach evolution in schools, then of course I'm gonna vote for them. But if they're just a creationist, I would vote for them. I think there's a lot of people who, if we were to put this in any other context, I think it would get quite ridiculous. There's a lot of people who have superstitious beliefs about a lot of things. There are people who believe in ghosts in Congress. If you heard tomorrow that Bernie Sanders was like, when I was 7, I saw a ghost at my house, and he went, ooh, and that happened. Would you now be like, well, now I gotta vote for Joe Biden because?
No, I think
Yeah. And Demon Mama, you know that I'm a Christian man, right? Would that stop you from voting for me, even though there's no scientific, well, at least there's no scientific proof as of right now that there is a God, right?
No, and I think that's fair. I guess when the question, I guess, seems a little bit broad to me. So my assumption in saying like somebody who does not believe in evolution and identifies as a creationist, like I guess I made the assumption of that like this is a part of their platform. If their religion is irrelevant to their platform and they don't plan on like advocating for that, then of course no, then I would amend my answer for that. However, I mean, I come from a, you know, I grew up in a very extreme religious group where evolutionism and creationism was very much a part of their political platform, and they did push that into local politics. So it's something that I would be very cautious with. But I guess it is fair to say that if somebody does not make it a part of their political platform or their political advocacy, then it wouldn't matter to me.
Well, what if it is part of their platform? Because I believe my faith is part of the platform I would push. I believe giving everybody health care is the Christian thing to do. I don't want to get into a debate about faith. I most certainly don't want to get into a debate about faith on Twitch. That's a horrible idea. But I believe that a lot of the things I do is the Christian thing to do, to help your neighbor, to do all these things. And I think the ways that I would help people is the way that I believe, in a way, is God's work. That's part of my platform.
If you're asking if I think that people shouldn't vote for Christians, then the answer is I don't care. Like that doesn't matter to me. Like vote for a Christian if they're a good person, of course. I don't believe in discriminating based on just like your religious beliefs. I do think though, again, the sort of assumption that I made, and that's probably on my fault for making the assumption about somebody who is identified as a creationist. If somebody is making that a part of their identity and platform, I would have a lot of skepticism about them holding office. Same way as I would for an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of overlap between.
So we'll go to LSP and then we'll go to you, Endernax.
Oh, hard pushback, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a hard pushback against you too, Endernax. Bearing in mind, obviously, real politics, there's a lot of factors you got to take into voting. That said, like in a perfect world, Dylan, you'd be getting the axe. There's no way I'd vote for you in a million years because your faith, and this isn't meant to be like a personal mockery. Maybe I should just broaden this. Like, if you believe in a God, it demonstrates a fundamental failure of your critical thinking faculties. You have essentially found an imaginary friend that you talk to and look to for guidance. And it's great that you have a progressive platform and that you want to help people. It's great that you are motivated to do good things. The issue is the methods by which you get to that motivation, the methods by which you find this. And that's great and all that you found it in Christ. But I feel like if you just swapped out some nouns and replaced it with like Elvis Presley, we'd all realize it for the silly thing it was. Right? I want somebody who can take new information and learn it and see things that challenge them and not have to rely on spiritual guidance, which I would just say like it's yourself. You're talking to yourself. But you think it's an imaginary friend, right? To like find like wisdom on really complicated world issues. Like it demonstrates to me a failure of critical thinking. Okay, you guys can lay into me now.
All right, no, okay.
We got it. We got to let Dylan respond to that. Then I will let you enter next. Wait
a second.
Dylan was called out.
Okay, well, I'll just say one thing, and then Dylan can speak. I promise. Okay. Dylan, is that okay? I'll let you go first.
Endernax, you can go because I'm about to say some very unchristian things.
Hey, I got you, buddy. Because
I love you both, though. I love you both.
Hey, buddy. Hey, LSP. I remember when I was like you, when I was 16 and I was an edgy atheist, I too thought the same way. The truth is, the world is a lot more complicated than that. Human emotions are a lot more complicated than that. Most people vote based on emotions, not logic, and you're never going to change that. I'm sorry, LSP. Not everything can be your 100% policy-driven fucking utopia, buddy. I expected this out of an edgy, I expected this take out of like somebody who is like a super far left socialist who fucking hates religion and wants to see all religious structures abolished. Not you. You specifically didn't say that, Demon Mama. Okay, so I'm not referring to you. I'm just saying that I would have expected this from somebody who wasn't a fucking liberal, okay? Jesus Christ. You literally just disqualified like 85% of American politicians and you disenfranchised most of the American population. What is this take? It's so bad, I don't even know what to say. Go ahead, Dylan.
I mean, like, it's cool if you're against American values. You want to participate in a different system. I'm about all the freedom of religion. There's a lot of people with a lot of different religious views, and I'll vote for them if they fight for a lot of the same policies or they have similar political alignments with me. You know what? Me and a Muslim have different views on religion, right? But if we're fighting for the same political views, if we're fighting for the same policy things that I think help the most people, I'm going to vote for them. To be quite honest, someone's religious views, as long as it's not going to, in my opinion, like negatively affect the American population, which I don't think I don't really go out there like forcing my faith on anybody. Nobody could really say that. That's kind of a personal thing. I don't think that is really shown to me to be this like deep critical like failure of my thought or my ability to judge politics from everything I've done. And I think, if anything, LSP, right? I think that I've worked harder than just about everybody else with my faith as something that has helped to push me forward. And without it, there's a possibility I would have been able to do that. So my thing is, maybe I could counter with you, and this isn't something but I believe, but I will counter with this. Maybe there's something to put to the fact that people without faith don't have the same sort of belief in their convictions, and therefore can't fight with the same amount of genuine strength behind themselves for the same things I'm fighting for. If I believe God's on my side, I'm gonna fight till the end of time.
This is why I can't vote at all, because I don't believe that the universe actually exists.
It's not.
And everyone else seems to, which says to me that everyone else is not exercising their critical thinking skills. So, and I just can't vote for that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So we're gonna,
by the way, no, I would vote for you. I'm not being very literal here when I say like you'd get the axe. Like obviously, like 95% of the world believes in a god of some kind. I would be compelled to vote for somebody just like.
But only you has the ultimate truth, LSP. Only
Where do you draw
you.
the line?
I do. Yes.
Literally tens of thousands of years of human history of society and culture working together to culminate in all these different religious formations.
And you all disagree with so many different religions.
You LSP see a bunch of these disagreements and you go, aha! I am the enlightened centrist. I have discovered the ultimate truth of the universe, and that's that nothing matters and existence is arbitrary. And if all the other humans would do this, if all the other humans would do this, simply do this, they surely wouldn't kill themselves. They surely wouldn't seek meaning in other places. No, this should be enough for them. There's nothing out there. Shut up, dude.
I don't understand why people
in
afterlife don't kill themselves if they have such a belief in it.
I just want to comment on this real quick, which is
okay. Hold on. I just want to get this from LSP. So you say, okay, you might vote for Dylan, but if he was a creationist, that would be a strike against him, or even his religion in general.
Yeah, I probably worded this poorly. I mean, like, because reality is like everyone and their mother's fucking religious, but I would vote for Dylan because he's more progressive on a lot of these issues, and we would coincide with a lot of issues that are very important. And I trust Dylan generally to be an intelligent enough person to like figure out complicated issues. That said, that he has this faith demonstrates a flaw in his ability to critically think about certain things, and that might carry over. That doesn't mean I wouldn't vote for Dylan, because the other guy's probably got the same flaw and probably applies it in worse ways.
I just want to say, I would vote for Pope Francis over LSP any day. I would vote for that man over any day of the week.
So I want to go I want to go to Rob, and then last username, and then back to you, Demon Mama, and then after that, make sure Danville has a say. So Rob first.
Yeah, LSP. I think that it's just reeks of arrogance that you think that people that might have a different view on the creation of the world lack critical thinking skills. It would be a shame to be made a fool by one of those creationists in a debate where they showed that they have far more critical speaking skills than you. In general, I think that this speaks to something more, which is, do we look at people's philosophical or kind of their reasons for living and their reasons for acting the way they do as something detrimental if it leads to the same conclusions as us? So, for example, take out creationists versus non-creationists. If you have a Christian and a Muslim, and through their faith they both come to saying, we want the same sort of policies, would one say, well, no, I can't endorse the other because I don't agree how they got to the beliefs of those philosophies? I think that that's dangerous and terrible, and what that does is cause division and cause us to not have an understanding of who we are as humans. I think that oftentimes we should be seeking to ally ourselves with people that come to what we think are good worldviews, even if they come from a different place than us and they got to those views in a different place. And by arrogantly thinking, no, I'm the only person that could be right, you lack critical thinking skills, it just fosters division that throws away would-be allies that could help us solve some serious problems.
No, okay, so you've got the table of operations here wrong if you think I'm the one displaying arrogance, right? I'm not the one making this positive assertion that the Earth is in fact this old and it was created by this all-knowing, all-loving God who had this in mind when he created it. I have made no such declarations. It's other people who've made this declaration.
Are you declaring it's not the case?
No, I don't know it's not the case.
Okay, so if you don't know, how could you reject someone saying they don't have critical thinking skills if you're admitting you don't know?
Sure, because it's an unfalsifiable premise. Because there's no way you can falsify it that demonstrates a problem.
That doesn't.
Okay, LSP. Would it help if I had these political views before I found my faith? Would that help at all?
What? Like, what do you mean help with what?
Like with your ability to vote for me over the other person.
No, I already said I would vote for you over the other person.
Yeah. Well, like, no, because you're in a perfect world. You wouldn't though.
In a perfect world where there were other rational voters and you were against somebody who had the exact same policies as you but not the faith, then I'd vote for the other guy.
Okay. So, like, here's a question though. You're voting for a politician, not a philosopher, right? If I'm going in there and I've already made it clear that I want to preserve America's freedom of religion, which I hope you don't want to get rid of.
No.
And I just, that would be, when it comes to my faith, that's as much as it will come into like the sphere of it affecting the policies I'm going to implement, even though some of them might personally motivate me to do some of the same things that we agree about. I don't see like where that's going to really affect your ability to vote for me over the other guy. If it's not, if I'm saying that's a personal thing, relationship between me and God's personal, nobody else's business.
But it's not just a personal thing. You carry it forward in like the way you evaluate information all the time. You might not know you do it, but the fact is you've already lended yourself.
That's every stimulus and everything you've ever learned in your entire life educates your decision right now. Yeah, okay. So wait, so how, okay, then we need a litmus test too, because religion's not the only harmful thing you can learn.
Sure, if you also like believe in vaccine denial, I think like it's pretty harmful and you should probably not be elected. Like I can go down the list of a lot of things that
I feel like
people are crazy for believing
so
in.
We
I
got.
want to play the standard two equally.
I wanna give Alexis
arbitrary.
a chance. Go ahead.
Okay. So bear with me here. This is going somewhere relevant. Physicists have known for a while now that a cat in a box is not always necessarily either alive or dead. Sometimes it can be in a state that is neither alive nor dead in particular circumstances. Physicists know this, but the vast majority of normal people would don't believe that. They don't think that's true, and they're wrong.
But that's not.
Are they
that's
wrong?
not how Schrodinger's cat works. No.
Approximately. I'm.
Wait, just let him have it.
So it's literally the opposite.
But the point is,
let him have it.
Okay. The point is that physicists know something very fundamental here that the vast majority of normal people don't know, and in fact would probably deny if you actually ask them about it in a sort of straightforward way. Does this mean that the vast majority of people are stupid? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that the vast majority of people are not experts at this particular aspect of physics. And it means that they don't need to know this aspect of reality. It doesn't matter to their lives. And you'll find that this is true of most of the things that people know, that we know, that somebody knows, that an expert knows. Most people don't know because they don't need to. I think this is largely the explanation for why people believe in a lot of things that are controversial, like a god or creationism or flat earth and all sorts of things like that. So if you have this standard where, like, if somebody believes this, even though it isn't relevant, it proves that they're stupid and therefore they're not qualified to do anything. I think that's an unrealistic approach to the way people really work. Really, you need to look at what are this person's beliefs that are actually relevant to the things that I'm expecting them to do, and mostly put everything else aside, because most people are ignorant about most things realistically.
Okay.
Does that make sense, guys?
Well, Demon Mama has a lot to say about that. After that, we'll go to Danville. Go ahead.
I think I'm the only one that agrees with LSP here. I think religious views are inherently dogmatic, and that's a problem, particularly with religious views. Would it personally disqualify me from voting for them? No, because again, just like LSP, I've got to be pragmatic and see that 90% of the people that I'm going to be voting for are going to be religious, so I've got to vote pragmatically. But yeah, dogmatic.
Most beliefs are dogmatic, not just religious. Most people.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Yeah, they pretty much are.
No, not incontrovertibly true. No, name me a belief that you hold that's incontrovertibly true. What's...
Sorry, name a belief.
Can you not have your mind? Can you not have your mind changed?
Sure, I can have my mind changed. I'm just saying that most of the things people believe, they don't believe because they've done some scientific investigation. They just believe it dogmatically.
Yes, but I don't hold that belief to be incontrovertibly true. My mind can be changed. That's the difference between a dogmatic view, right? You get those.
Okay.
I think you guys agree with each other, and you just don't know it.
Maybe perhaps.
This is actually something that I had been wanting to comment on, which is that in this case, like, there's two things I want to say. First of all, this kind of became like a referendum on like whether people would vote for Dylan Burns because Dylan Burns has religious beliefs. I don't think that
I'd vote for you, Dylan.
Yeah, I would too. But also, like, I think when we say, and again, perhaps this was me for my fault, I'll accept it if it is, for jumping the gun on it, but when people say creationist, usually that refers to a very specific or a relatively specific sect of Christianity that came to popularity, like a couple of decades ago, and has had a political presence for some time. So that was my response in answering that. I do believe very strongly that we need to have, and I believe even religious folks should have, who are running in politics, should have this critique, which I believe that Dylan probably does, which is why I don't think Dylan's a good example of this particular conversation, because is that we should have critique of dogma and tradition, which are many organized religions push sort of traditional views, which are, of course, as Danabo indicated, like they're argued as incontrovertible. You accept them because that is the tradition, because this is what was passed to you, this is what you learn, you were learning from a holy text, these things, this holy text is incontrovertible. But that's not necessarily how all religions operate. I do, however, think that it needs to be taken seriously, because that type of thought process is actually very dangerous, regardless of whether it's associated with religion or not. There just happens to be a strong association with many religions, because many religions operate on that axis. So when I say that, I think that it's important for people to bring a strong critique of sort of raw dogma and tradition, and be able to, and be capable of reforming their viewpoints if they're challenged with other information. Other than that, and again, I don't think that's necessarily one-to-one associated with any religion. I do think there are some associations. I also, but I would also point to, like, there could be similar problems with all kinds of viewpoints. If you are a member of like a non-religious political group with particularly dogmatic views, and traditionalism and whatnot, that would be a huge critique I would bring against that sort of politician. However, again, I don't think
that the vast majority of the views that people use to inform their votes are precisely as dogmatic as the belief in.
I mean, but do you have anything do you have any evidence to actually base that up?
Oh,
or
sure.
Is that just your
well, okay. So anecdotally, just
because I don't really know that that's true. Like, I think
the
that
average
there are
person, and I don't mean someone who's actually used to doing debates on Twitch and stuff. Just grab your some person off the street or your family member or something, and ask them what their political views are. Do you support this policy, that policy? And then ask them to just explain why they believe that. Why do you believe that's true? I predict that you will probably not even get like one step into that line of inquiry before they just say, I don't know, and go into some.
I mean, but this sounds like, but this is again, you're just asserting that, though. You haven't provided any evidence.
I have data.
Well, okay, if you have data that
my evidence is go ahead and try.
So
that's not evidence. That's just saying like whatever person I happen to talk. No, it isn't.
My evidence is a study on individuals who hold pro-life or pro-choice viewpoints, and it was the largest qualitative study that has ever been done on the subject. It was done over the course of over a year, and there were over 300 in-person interviews conducted. And the general consensus of the researchers after this massive project was that all of these people, the most common theme was that nobody had actual justifications for why they were pro-life or why they were pro-choice, and they would say things like they would keep pressuring them. And they're like, well, I just wouldn't get an abortion, so I don't think other people should. Like, literally, that was like the baseline level of logic that a lot of these people had as far as rationalizing their viewpoints.
But
so I actually agree with
non-religious versus religious. All of those.
Wait. This has every. Wait. No. But it was.
I just want to
point
out
the pro-choice people too.
That's fine, but
the pro-choice people can be religious. What
It was irrespective of religion, my friend.
Exactly. So why the study
Well,
doesn't matter?
There's a couple.
It does matter.
There's a couple of things I want to address here. First
If
of
they
all,
were all religious, then they're all dogmatic. It doesn't matter.
first of all, like someone on the spot being like unable to put together like a great argument for their position, or even a good argument for their position, does not necessarily mean that that person like builds their opinions off of dogma. It just means they're not used to expressing those out to other people and communicating their ideas. It also doesn't mean I also believe there are different levels of dogmatism. Like I think there are some people who are who tend to come to conclusions through discussions with other people or whatever, and that is not necessarily dogmatic. That's not being given an idea and taking that incontrovertibly and replicating that. So I don't know that this. I don't know that we can.
A
I
friend
think it's
could be like an
irresponsible.
authority figure, couldn't it?
I mean, for sure, absolutely.
So then
I think
that could be
there are
dogmatic.
People, but I think there are people. I don't mistake that I'm saying that people can't be dogmatic. I do believe people can be dogmatic. I just don't think that anybody on this panel here has evidence to make the statement that the average person just is some sort of dogmatic person. I think there are probably plenty of people who are, and plenty of people who come to their own conclusions through a lot of thought. And it might be flawed thought. It might be flawed thought processes, but I highly doubt that. I doubt the claim that most people are dogmatic.
So I want to go back to Dylan. See if he has anything to say on this, and then we go to Rob and Ellis speak.
I just want to say that God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life. And I think that's all I'm gonna say. You can all keep debating or whatever.
Okay. We'll go to Rob. First of all, thank you, Finger, for that gifting a hot tier 1 sub to Gary and Kellis. Gary and Kellis, welcome to the Worst Generation. Thank you, Finger, for that support. Okay, Rob.
Okay, so Demon Mama and Dan, let me ask you this. So we could agree that perhaps people's dogmatic beliefs on religion don't influence their political decisions and things like that. Would you reject a political movement that acted in a dogmatic way?
Yeah, I tend to do that pretty strongly.
Okay.
I have very strong critiques of I just think there's a broad spectrum, and I think that I do believe that there are many political viewpoints that do behave incredibly dogmatically.
Okay. So having said that, would you also agree that we said dogmatic means that it's non-falsifiable?
No, like I mean, that's, I suppose, a way to describe it. Generally,
okay, so if there was a movement, for example, that said #believe all women, would you reject that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Your
sure.
mic broke up.
If there was a movement that said #believe all women, would you reject that for being dogmatic?
A hashtag? I mean,
a political.
Like a
if there was, sure. If there was, if there was a political movement that said believe all women. I see what you're trying to get at,
and like it sounds like you're trying to draw a really weird false equivalency. But like people like the hashtag. I mean, again, this is kind of a pivot to a different topic, because like the hashtag is by definition a boiled down slogan, and there's literally always behind every hashtag there's always more context for what that actually means. And in fact, a hashtag is usually just used to spark interest with something snappy that's easy to repeat.
So you would reject anyone that honestly believes
on that specific example. Before you draw up any hypotheticals or whatever, when people say believe women, that has a very, very specific and fact-based approach. The reason being is that we have an overwhelming number of statistics that show that victims of sexual abuse are repeatedly disrespected, not listened to. Even when they are listened to, their cases often are ignored or neglected. So the point of that hashtag has a very specific thing. I wouldn't say that's dogmatic at all.
It is dogmatic. It's believe all women.
Okay,
that's
asserting that, but I wouldn't.
No,
say
that is dogmatic. And believe all women. Do you believe all women?
Excuse me. I know it sounds like you're really emotionally involved.
I'm not emotional. I get to say 30 seconds to your 10 minutes. I'm just trying to get you to answer the question.
A hashtag.
It's not just a hashtag. That's something that they used as a move. Do you believe all women? I'm not asking.
Down. It's inaccurate, right?
Wait. But
like there's the sort of intellectual, rational meaning of it.
Yeah, but hashtags are irrational. I wouldn't assume that. Yeah, but this is just that you're engaging bad faith with a hashtag. Yeah. Like I'm sorry. Would you wait a second. Hold on a second. You're engaging in bad faith with a hashtag by trying to say that a hashtag is representative of an entire viewpoint. When in reality, a hashtag is a publicity stunt functionally. It's a mass publicity stunt to bring attention to a specific idea or a specific thing. For example, if you were to see the hashtag time's up, would you think that that hashtag literally mean that time is in the air? Like, that's very silly.
Okay,
like,
may I respond?
Slogans.
May I respond? So this is what I think. This is what I think's ironic about the discussion. When we can actually see a political movement based around something that's dogmatic, such as patriarchy's responsible for all these evils, which is non-falsifiable, or
I disagree with this characterization.
Excuse me.
This is like
or we see we see a political movement that's based in an ideology of believe all women. This wasn't just a hashtag. A hashtag was part of it, but excuse me. Well, be comfortable if I interrupt you every time you talk. I could do that too. I could just interrupt you every time you try to talk too. That's no problem. I'm capable of that. That's no problem, Demon Mama.
I think, Rob, sorry. Yeah, I think we're like getting wildly off topic here, so I'm gonna bring us back. I'll let Danville seemed like he has something to say on this, so
I was going to
and LSP.
I was going to engage with Rob in good faith. Can you repeat the question to me?
Yeah, so
like engaging with him in good faith for the record.
Please, Demon
Mama. Right. So if we're talking about dogmatism and statements that are non-falsifiable, there was a large political movement that was represented by a hashtag, and more than that, we saw Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and others say "believe all women" during the Kavanaugh saga, for example. And so that seems to seem somewhat dogmatic to me as well. So we're talking about hypothetically, if someone like Dylan had a dogmatic religious belief, but it didn't affect them politically, we're having a discussion of whether or not that would be a reason to vote for or against him. But what if that dogmatism gets into your politics? It's literally right in your face. I think that the statement "believe all women" is undefensible. I mean, clearly, it's just not true. If it was true and you believe that it's true, there's 5 women that have accused Joe Biden? So clearly people that said that, they're using that in a dogmatic sense where they're saying, no, I just believe women when I choose to, and any evidence that controverts it, I choose not to believe. That's dogmatism. That's exactly what it is. So my question is, how do we go from the hypothetical of if this did affect your politics to we could actually see a political movement that is based in it right now?
Okay, I think first of all...
Let's Danbo respond.
Okay, just to engage with it in good faith, if there was a movement that just said "believe all women" incontrovertibly, and that was the basis of it, then yes, I would be a skeptic. I think that's a mixed characterization of the Me Too movement and the "believe all women" movement, but yeah, hypothetically, I would be a skeptic, and yeah.
Okay.
Likewise, if there was such a an ideology that pushed the idea of believing all women incontrovertibly, then I would be greatly skeptical of such a movement. I just think that this is a very dishonest representation. First of all, you even got the hashtag wrong. The hashtag is "believe women," not "believe all women." But small difference. But I mean, it's a slogan again. I just think that that trying to say that a hashtag on Twitter is representative of dogma is a stretch. Is a huge
covered. Okay, we got it. Thank you. LSP, can you get us back on track? LSP? Oh, okay. I guess he's having some internet trouble. All right. Andrew next. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I put on my thinking cap and I realized that now I'm actually just completely rejecting the idea of any existence of God now.
I concur.
I just wanted to say that it's very important that all my fellow Americans put on their thinking caps and realize that only morons would ever believe in a God.
Yes, I will say that I was very divided on the issue until I had a Twitch debate about my religion, and then all my positions changed. Truly, when everybody DMs me saying debates me on my faith, it has changed my position truly on my religion. I have completely done a 180, and I thank everyone in my DMs currently. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure if there's too much else to be said on this. But we'll have I guess closing statements on this. LSP is not around, unfortunately. Okay, that's fine. We'll go to Dylan. Then we'll go go around. So Dylan first.
I mean, I didn't know we were gonna shift over here. I mean, I don't really like talking my faith on stream for a lot of reasons. It's kind of a personal thing. But I'll just say that, like, if you disagree with whatever I believe in, that's fine. A lot of people disagree in my faith. I think I've proven through the work I do on the ground, the work I do every day, that I am a pretty progressive person. I think I have somewhat decent politics if you're on the left and you're considering voting for me or supporting me, and that I will continue to prove it as I continue to do the work that I do. And I don't think that who I pray to or where I pray should at all affect whether you should vote for me or anyone else.
I will go to Internex.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to find much disagreement there. I would say judge each person individually. For a lot of people, faith is very important to them. Their beliefs that they hold are pretty much central to any decision that they're making, and this is true for a lot of people. I don't. This idea that you can separate, that you can somehow judge a person just based on their religious identity or because they choose to pray at a certain hour, or it's about as despicable as Republicans saber rattling about individuals who are Islamic. So I don't know. I think that don't be a biased person. Don't be rude. To take each person individually. That's all.
Okay. Demon Mom.
Yeah. Again, I should state, although I have a lot of critiques of religion, I do believe faith is important to a lot of people, and I don't think that's disqualifying for office, though I do think that particularly extreme versions can certainly go into that department. That's why I feel a little bit weird, because I feel like this became, again, a referendum on Dylan Burns. I don't really feel like that's the conversation we were trying to have, but that's not what I assumed the question was. But I do think that we need to have very serious critiques of very dogmatic views, traditionalism, things like this. But I don't think that having religious views is disqualifying of office. People have many, many views. Even people who consider themselves incredibly grounded in their axioms often have some areas where they are weak or dogmatic, or have some faith that they haven't quite yet realized. So I think while it's important to have a critique, I think it's foolish to try and say that like somebody is completely disqualified just for having some religious views. Though I do very much think it's important to critique dogma and traditionalism. Also, I just wanted to make sure in my ending statement, I really don't. Again, I know I already said this once. I don't want to be too repetitive, but I don't think it's fair to try and equate like hardline dogma to a Twitter hashtag. I think that's very very manipulative in viewing people who may have used that or found that a hashtag that helped them. So
okay, last username.
So human beings have, broadly speaking, two different kinds of beliefs, right? You have the kinds of beliefs that you believe because you need to believe them in order to exist. You have to believe that you should cross the road on a green light and not a red, because if you don't believe that, you will not exist for very long. And so there's a small sphere of those kinds of beliefs that people have, and people are very, very good at being right about those beliefs for the most part. There's this other kind of belief, which are things that you don't actually need to know in any practical sense. But for some weird reason, people tend to have a lot of these beliefs anyway. People believe a lot of things about whether or not it's a good idea to have, say, rent control. A typical person doesn't, whether what they believe about rent control is irrelevant. It's not actually going to have any effect on their life. They can believe anything they want and they'll be fine. But you ask most people, and they will, for whatever reason, have very convictions on the issue of rent control. I think it is largely politics that causes people to have these kinds of beliefs. And if you are worried that there are particular beliefs like creationism that you find are so outrageous that they disqualify from even taking someone seriously, I would implore you to look at all of the other things that people believe and ask, is this any more justified? Do I have any more justification for believing this, or does this person have any more justification for believing this thing about rent control, for example, than they do about believing that the earth is 6,000 years old? Like, do they actually have a good reason? You probably find that most people are in a sense, creationists about most things, metaphorically speaking.
Interesting. Danbo.
Right, just to pick up on last username's traffic analogy. The problem with dogmatic beliefs is that people are told by an authority that red means cross, and they get hit by a bus repeatedly. And that's why it is a big issue with holding a dogmatic belief. Just to answer the question personally, would it disqualify somebody from public office? In Arkansas, yes, because they are trying to get creationism taught in schools, and it's not a science, and it is a dogmatic belief, and I don't want it in my public schools. So yeah, it does disqualify them for me. If it's a referendum on Dylan, I don't think he's a creationist. I don't think that would be in his platform, so I would absolutely vote for Dylan.
Okay. And Danbo, I'm not sure if there's like no name tag there. I'm not sure if you want that or not, but
I just put a dot there.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, on the question in general, I think that, I agree with what Dylan said predominantly. I think that if your religion or your beliefs or your philosophy leads you to making policies that would be bad, then I would have a problem with that. But I don't think that your beliefs or your philosophy or your religion, I don't think I would reject anyone regardless of what that religious belief was, even like a Scientologist or something. If their policies were good and they seem to be operating in good faith, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. I was just trying to point out that we actually do see dogmatism brought in ways that's not religious as well. The Me Too movement was one of those movements where they've said believe women or you believe all victims or something like that. It wasn't just a hashtag. We saw, for example, that Joe Biden said that if a woman came and spoke up against Kavanaugh, then clearly it must have some truth to it. Anytime a woman would speak up, there must be truth. I could read the quote, Demon Mama. That's fine. I'm shaking your head here. Let's see. Joe Biden says, he said, quote, "For a woman to come forward in the glaring lights of focus nationally, you've got to start off with the presumption at least the essence of what she's talking about is real." I guess that would mean Joe Biden believes the same is true of Tara Reade and the women that accused him. They came forth in the national spotlight. This is dogmatism. People that believe based on who was accused, that is a form of dogmatism. By the way, the right does this as well. You could find a position that Obama did, for example, tell a bunch of right-wingers that Trump did it and ask what they think about it, and they'll say that was great. And then when you're like, oh, it was Obama, all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, then it wasn't that great. The same is true vice versa. If you tell a bunch of left-wingers that Obama did something, they'll say it's great. But if you really say it's Trump, this happens all the time. You can shake your head, but it happens all the time. They do studies with this where these people just believe dogmatically what their side doing is good. So I think that there is room to discuss in actual politics how that dogmatism plays out every day. And both sides need to do a better job of weeding it out. But as far as people's religion, I don't care. It wouldn't impede me in voting for them.
Oh, wow. All right. That was, okay. LSP, finish us out.
Demon Mama's blood pressure could boil titanium right now. And
True.
I don't want that. So I'm going to address you, Rob. Because I can see what you're doing is you're trying to get this really shallow dunk by, and at this point, it's got to be intentional, misconstruing what Me Too means. I'm pretty sure you know Me Too, and this is why Me Too is a stupid slogan, to give you some credit. Me Too isn't supposed to be a dogmatic, we believe women unconditionally all the time, 100%, even when it's clear as day they're lying. It shouldn't be that. So if that's anybody's idea of Me Too, I think they're wrong, right? But I think you know better that Me Too isn't meant to be this way. It's meant to be, it's meant to mean take women seriously. But that doesn't fit so well in a fucking hashtag. That said, this broader debate was a debate about epistemology, and that's what I meant to make it. I didn't try to Andrew Nax and Dylan, I didn't try to indict Christianity in particular. I phrased my thing badly. What I meant to say was that a certain belief system, and you are judged, Andrew Nax, you are judged for your belief systems, like a priori. That's the case with everybody. You judge Scientologists, I'm sure I judge, like, I don't know, Republicans. But I mean, like, what you do is you when you have faith in a being that you cannot demonstrate to be real, right, and you have this faith and you can't justify it in any way that isn't spiritual, that isn't falsifiable, what it tells me is that there's a problem epistemologically with the way you approach things. Now, this isn't meant, again, I'm sorry, Dylan. I'm sorry, Internex. Didn't mean to indict like your religion in particular. This is broadly anything. And so instead of saying God, what I should say was any number of other gods that you all dismiss every day without thought, right? Certainly the flying spaghetti monster would get the same treatment. If I say I find my spiritual guidance from the Pastafarian flying spaghetti monster for how I resolve issues, you'd think I lost my fucking mind, right? That's all I meant.
No.
But no, that sounds still pretty bad. God damn, there's no way to like make this sound good. It's a problem with epistemology. I wasn't trying to like insult you guys, but I largely agree with what Danabo said. For the most part, about like there's a difference between like ironically, I kind of agree with last username too. There's a dogmatism here that is present in social sciences too. I agree with last username. But I think that dogmatism is very different in terms of falsifiability from religious dogmatism, right? People who dogmatically believe anything in social sciences probably are doing a disservice to that social science. The cool thing about like social sciences is they are testable, right? You can offer competing hypotheses and you can find ways to test them. We'll take the systemic racism meme as examples. There are tests you can do to demonstrate that racism is real on a systemic level. I can't say the same about God. There's no God test. You know, there's nothing to demonstrate the existence of God or disprove the existence of God. So it's already a non-starter, and that's my issue. Okay, sorry. I know that was long, and there you go.
No, that's fine. Okay. So, I like Dylan Burns. Dylan, if you were up for office, I'd certainly vote for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm happy to have everyone's endorsement in here, including Rob. I've made Rob a Democrat tonight. Great to see it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should probably leave it at that. All right. So, we'll move on to topic 3. Should the U.S. encourage high school immigration in terms of like doctors, or engineers, or maybe not lawyers because there'll be immigrants coming in, and doctors or engineers, or should it instead focus on improving the U.S. workforce? So yeah, there's been there's been a big debate about like how many of a certain type of visa that lets in high skilled immigration, high skilled workers in from other countries. How many of them we should have? Is that a detriment? For instance, Disneyland. I remember this specifically because I do IT. Or excuse me, Disney World fired its IT staff, like 50 of them or so. I believe this is many years ago. But they fired them, even though they were doing fantastic work. This was known, like in terms of their reviews, they're all doing great, right? They fired them all and then replaced them with workers from I believe India. They like flew them in, so like not simply remote workers, but actually flew them in, and then had the staff, train their replacements, which is a thing companies do that freaking drives me up the wall. But these were high skilled workers, U.S. workers, but because the company Disney had the option, decided to completely wipe out that workforce for a cheap workforce. So. Should the U.S. be encouraging high school immigration, or should just again focusing on American workers? Who wants to go at this first?
I'll start.
All right.
So damn, I want to start. Okay.
So there's kind of 2 separate questions here, I think. Should we have high skilled immigration, and should we help train, increase the skills of American workers? You can do both of these things. They're not mutually exclusive. For the matter of immigration, we should absolutely, I believe in completely free movement, which means I believe that people have the right to hire other people or work for other people from any, regardless of what borders are in between them. I don't think it's moral or practical to prevent, foreigners from being hired to work at domestic high-skilled positions. There's no moral justification for it, and there's no practical justification for it. It's, ask any economist, this is a benefit to bring highly skilled people into your country. Those people are valuable there. They will create value. They will be productive, and that will help. There's no downside to that in your country, even if you believe that they're putting people out of work or displacing domestic workers It's probably not the case, but even if you think that, these are high-skilled workers, positions they're displacing, they'll probably be okay, right? They're not going to starve to death. They'll get other high-skilled jobs. They'll be okay. So this is a good thing. The other matter of should we increase the skills of domestic workers? I mean, there's definitely a need for that. I don't think there's much the government can do directly to address that problem. I think there's very deep problems with our educational system that is resulting in perhaps a deficit of high skilled workers, or at least a unnecessary divide between skilled workers and unskilled workers. But maybe I'll just leave that open because we can probably go into that. It's a big discussion.
Andrew next.
Yeah, I think we need to close down the borders until we can figure out what the hell. Okay, I can't. I can't even like enthusiastically do the LARP. I don't know. For me, it's always been it's a complicated issue. This is pretty obvious to me though. It's both. Like, why would it be one or the other? Why wouldn't we prioritize both high skilled immigration and also the training of our own workforce? It seems silly to me. If people are able to be trained to become high skilled in the country, I think that they should be given every opportunity to do so. And then also we can accept high skilled labor elsewhere. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't America's the best country on the planet? Why wouldn't we want the best talent in the world here? It makes no sense.
Damn, okay. Base take.
Do you have a top comment, LSP?
Yeah, I agree with Andronax. Okay. Oh, and Luster's in it for that matter.
I see no real reason why we can't do both. I think, in fact, all evidence that we have, all available evidence points to the fact that immigration helps our economy, and also so does investing in our workforce. I would think that'd be a win-win. Why not both? I think that a lot of the sort of, I guess a lot of the politicians that have harped really hard on like, oh, we want the best and brightest or whatever, are acting on like totally flawed assumptions about immigration, and they don't actually know what the evidence points to, which is that immigrants actually help the economy in all but very, 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 very slim areas, which can be easily offset with very inexpensive social programs, aka improving our workforce. So yeah, absolutely.
The problem is they're damn spoiled kids, Demon Mama. They're damn spoiled kids. God.
I mean, some people do think that's a thing. I just don't. I don't know. It sounds more like prejudice to me than any actual like justified viewpoint.
Okay, I've actually, I think I'm the conservative on the panel now. Okay, the problem with increasing the amounts of high-skilled immigrants, well, it does have a positive effect of raising the wages of the lower-skilled, but it also decreases productivity, because the more high-skilled workers you have, the more low-skilled workers you need. So you'd need to do it in tandem with a low-skill immigration policy too. You can't just keep increasing the number of high-skilled workers without also increasing the number of lower-skilled workers. And vice versa, if you have an influx of lower skilled workers, you will increase productivity, but lower the wages for the lower skilled workers. That's at a very basic economic level.
But the immigration's, it's an interesting topic to me because it tends to reverse what you would usually assume is the position from conservatives and liberals, where now you have basically the left advocating for more of a free market, free exchange of labor, free exchange of goods, things like that. And it tends to be people on the right are more like, no, we need to protect the U.S.
Now, sorry, Rob.
Yeah, you cut out a bit there, buddy.
Oh, let me refresh and I'll be back. Someone else can go.
Okay.
I think I know what he's trying to say.
You might want to try reconnecting to the Discord call as well.
Yeah, the Discord. Yeah, try that as well. Thank you.
to allow high-skilled immigrants to come over, help develop an industry, help teach locals how to participate in that industry. They settle down, and then with that, not only have you gotten another country to train a workforce to then come over here and help us, which is hugely beneficial to our economy and to our workforce, but then it allows our workforce to kind of build around them. As with them coming over, they a lot of the times end up teaching us some of the very similar traits. Not to mention the fact that now for each person that comes over and they're contributing to the economy through their high skill labor, they then, so a lot of times with high skill immigrants, they make jobs, they make businesses, they do this, they do that. They need their own grocer, they need their own doctor, they need their own cab driver. And you know what? That's an extra person who's a customer for a doctor. That's an extra person who's a customer for a cab driver. An extra person who's a customer to the local 7-Eleven even. You know, goes by, grabs a bag of cigs, whatever, right? With all of that, not only are you helping add to the high skill labor that is within your country's workforce, which allows you to do more specialized jobs, and not only does it help train locals a lot of times in the long run, but you're also helping to expand the economy and create more job opportunities in the long run. So I don't think that just because something is laissez-faire doesn't necessarily mean, you know, it's the weird thing that Democrats are more for bringing people in. I would say that the reason why is I think this has come into effect that a lot of it comes from the idea of like a conservative idea of preservation. I think when it comes to the rights idea of this, I'm not a right winger, but always the signal I've gotten is this idea of preserving a certain culture that America has, preserving a certain identity that America has, and this idea that large-scale immigration could, in the long run, erase that. Where
well, this is just silly. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Maybe I should.
I'm not saying that's my position, Endernax.
Right. No. I know you're not. It's like demographics is destiny, basically. It's a shitty argument. It's stupid. It's this idea that people can't assimilate. It's a horrible, horrible argument. I don't know. It's such a reductive argument. You basically have to go down to, okay, I'm a racist now. Like literally, I'm a racist now.
True.
Yeah, all right. Fuck.
Now listen.
Well, what a dim outlook on the future you have.
Now
Holy
listen,
shit.
I don't share that outlook. I don't care. I say all the time, if people that look like me would decide to stop procreating, voluntarily, I wouldn't care if there's one person of my race in 100 years. I don't care at all. But I do think that there's a problem with having too fast of an influx, right? So certainly I don't think it's a problem to bring in, some skilled immigrants. But if you would bring in like 50 million at one point, like that would obviously be a cultural overload that I think would be too much to handle. My take on
you'd see fascism arise.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you have to be honest about that. You can't.
But you'd see that because of racists, though.
Well,
no,
it's because there's economic needs in the interior of the country that aren't being met, and so basically, based on like these individuals not receiving what they need, it's very easy for a populace, a conservative populace even, like Trump, to come in and blame the immigrants, and then all of a sudden, a nationalistic fervor against these people who happen to be brown starts being driven up, and then people start engaging in acts of violence, and then all of a sudden you have a fascist uprising.
Right, but we're seeing that right now, regardless. Like, we're yeah. So it's like I don't even think
but
it's
if you
a matter
added 50
of the number.
million,
I think
imagine
it's
it'd be much worse.
Well, sure. I'm not in disagreement with you that it wouldn't worsen like the pre-existing things, but what I'm trying to say is that we see that now with the very anti immigration and in the middle of a pandemic, of course. The scapegoating of immigrants is the problem there, not necessarily the number. But
I do
think that the number could make it stronger.
I do want to make sure that Rob understands. I'm referring to like increased recruitment. The FBI's reported increased recruitment numbers to white nationalist terrorist cells like Adam Waffen Division. Like all of these, like a lot of these white nationalist groups are seeing record highs in membership. And this is in large part due to, when people have shitty lives or like their communities start ODing from opiates and they don't have jobs. And then on top of that, you have a message of these immigrants took your job. It's easy to fall down a rabbit hole that leads you to a dark place.
Why are there, so would we say the same about, okay, sorry.
No,
go ahead, Rob.
I guess all that I was trying to say there was just that, like, I would, it seems obvious. It seems right there to point the finger at people scapegoating the wrong problem, than to try and say that it's like a matter of the open borders, because because it isn't. The reason why people are miserable right now, the reason why we have the opioid crisis, has nothing to do with immigrants. They're just being wrongfully scapegoated. So I guess, again, this is a small point. I largely agree with what you're saying. I think that it's important to recognize that it is pre-existing social prejudices and the whipping up of hatred by people like Donald Trump, for example, who would be responsible for that sort of movement.
I mean, when it comes to, first up, would the same be true of like other communities of people of color? Of course. When you have one group of a people of color and then they see that a lot of people move into their area and they feel that they're being overlooked, they too would be upset. So I don't think that this is unique to white people. Also, I think that you see, for example, in New York City, we heard about a lot of anti-Semitism on the rise. Whoops, turns out that's from the Nation of Islam. Those people that did the funeral security for George Floyd that are hobnobbing him around with all the Democrats. But yeah, and also when you talk to Richard Spencer and these groups that are white nationalist groups, universally they say the number one recruitment for them is groups like Black Lives Matter and groups like black nationalist groups. They feed off each other. When you have these racial identitarians, they feed off each other. So the idea that this is all Trump's fault is just nonsense. My point I was trying to make is just that you can't have an influx too much. Now, in the general point of should we be accepting skilled labor? Sure. I think we should have more of a focus, though, on making sure that the people in this country have the opportunity first and foremost. But if there are jobs that, for whatever reason, people can't fill in those areas, then yeah, I don't see a problem with bringing in skilled labor.
So I'll let Demon Mama respond to that, but then I want to get some other people in. I'll go to Dianabo, and then LSP. LSP, and then last year's name. Sorry. Dianabo, LSP, Demon Mama first.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's a pretty absurd stretch to try and blame Black Lives Matter, a movement against police violence, for for the fact that there are right wingers who hate them and want police violence to continue against them. When you have a president who has made almost his entire platform on increasing racial tensions by means of speaking down to, demonizing, threatening. I mean, I think Donald Trump has used things such as there are hordes of Mexicans at our gates and stuff like that. Like, this language is undeniably like racist language. This is language that whips people up into racial furor. I just think it's hilariously dishonest of you to try and pin racial tensions on a group like Black Lives Matter, which is by all accounts an incredibly peaceful movement, one of the biggest in history, that's been fighting to stop the public execution and public harm of Black people who did nothing wrong. Like, we just had another situation last night where, as I'm sure many of us have seen the footage of this, that's just inexcusable. It is systemic. So the idea that you would try and pin that on Black Lives Matter is just phenomenally dishonest.
They're a domestic terror organization. They're burning down cities all over the country. How did Black Lives Matter do in the Chaz zone? How did they do in the
claim?
Whoa, nope.
But just real quick, Prime, I just want to say I find it interesting how other people are allowed to respond when... I got it. I get the rules. I'll remember it next Monday. Got it.
We're not doing the BLM. All right, whatever. So we're not doing the BLM thing now. So we're moving on. All right. So I believe I said Danbo next. Yeah.
Actually, me, or do you want LSP? Because I've got LSP's name and he's got my name. I don't know. I don't know if you were confused by that.
It's you, my dude. It's you.
All right. I'm always surprised on the tangents that these conversations go on. We were supposed to be talking about whether we should accept high-skilled immigrants or train them in the States, I thought. Again, if you're going to train high-skilled immigrants, it's going to reduce the earnings of the local people. And you're going to reduce GDP if you do that. If you train them in-house, you've got more of a chance to build the infrastructure along with the training of the people that are already here. If you're arguing for open borders, then I agree with Rob. If you let too many people in, you're going to collapse the system. We should massively focus on building infrastructure before we let people in. And if you want to argue for open borders, then do so. But right now, the infrastructure is so bad that many Americans can't make it by. So.
Okay. I said I'll speak.
Yeah, I'm really glad I get to go, Danabo, because I get to take you to the woodshed for that. Firstly, you said that if you bring in immigrants, it reduces the wages and decreases GDP. That's not true. That's not how. I don't know where you're getting that from. Right, we're increasing the supply of labor and we're increasing the supply of consumers. The GDP will go up.
There you go.
So I mean, that's
citation needed. Here we go.
Okay,
that's true.
Point. Well, I mean,
it's just true. So there's citation for you.
And the other argument was, well, if you wear open borders, it'll just collapse the whole system. We were an open borders country for the first 100 years of this country. We didn't get our first immigration law until like the Chinese Exclusion Act, and this whole system you're speaking of seemed to last through a civil war. Like, I don't know what you mean by collapse the whole system. We seem to be fine. We came out the other end just fine. I don't know why we couldn't.
It's now a developed country and not a non-developed country. There's a massive difference in those two things. It's not the same country as it was.
We weren't pre-industrial.
Wait, you think as an undeveloped country we wouldn't collapse, but as a developed country we would?
Well, there was nothing to collapse, was there?
Wait, what? Oh my god. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's really silly.
Okay, and then the other point was this point
that
like
what?
We'd have
to economic studies. You've got high-skilled workers and low-skilled workers. If you only have a country with low-skilled workers and no high-skilled workers, then of course bringing in the high-skilled workers will raise.
No, just the idea that like America wasn't a developed country until we passed the Chinese Exclusion Act is just a really like silly argument. It made me laugh. That's all.
I didn't pick a point in history. You just did that.
Wait, LSP did. You were responding to LSP.
Did. Yeah, we were open border country for like the first 100 years of this country's existence.
Yeah, I didn't pick a point in history.
Okay, well, I'm just demonstrating that you can be an open borders country without experiencing the collapse of the system, whatever that
Danabo, when was the Great Immigration Collapse of 1820? When did that happen?
I think at this point that we've got such a collapse in infrastructure and the American wages.
Are we running out of streets? What does the collapse of infrastructure mean?
I mean, I live in Arkansas and we've barely got roads now.
You've barely got roads in Arkansas? Is it because of the immigrants? Like what?
No, it's because there's been no investment in infrastructure. Yeah.
I feel like infrastructure is doing a lot of work here. Maybe Danabo, you mean something broader than infrastructure, because infrastructure usually refers to just like roads and power and water.
And medical care. And, yeah.
Look, it's an obvious.
I mean, here in the United States,
of Mexican laborers, you can build more roads.
Dan, you're obviously right, because we know that it would be impossible to have all of the world's population here. So there needs to be some border control. Now, we also don't want a total. We don't want a totally restricted border.
Okay, that is like a total straw.
It's not a straw man. Open borders means anyone who wants to come in can come in. That's obviously not tenable. And we can actually see when we have. This is a completely different argument. This is a completely different argument than the topic, but like when we see mass illegal immigration, one of the things we see is environmental degradation, not because of where they come from or anything like that, but because when you have people at the lowest end of the income scale that are coming in and they're desperate, they're more of a drain on natural resources. So we actually see places where there's a lot of border crossings and things like that.
Do you have a citation
resources?
For that?
Yes.
You're making wide claims.
Holy shit, man. Yeah, like last Tuesday, and back me up on this. Like this meme that immigrants are like some sort of an excessive drain on natural resources or infrastructure is not borne out by any sort of statistical reality, any sort of empirical data on any of this. You can look at great immigrant diasporas coming out of like Cuba, like in the 1980s, right? Miami's still there. Miami's still a developed place. It still has an amazing infrastructure, and they got loads of immigrants like all at once. Like, where is this natural resource strain you're talking about? What natural resource are we running out of?
There's also the factor that with more immigrants do come more taxpayers, do come more people who would expand the economy. Therefore, you could then expand and work upon those infrastructure problems you have.
This is like MMT.
We're talking about high-skilled immigrants. These
policy.
are people who are going to be a net benefit for the economy. They're going to drain anything.
You said they're not going to drain anything. Last year's
these are high-skilled workers, right? These people are going to be productive.
Right. If we're talking about high-skilled immigration, but I think the conversation had kind of devolved into, like Rob brought up, like everyone coming.
No. That's what they said. Open borders. I was just responding.
Probably.
Gotcha. Yeah.
No, but the idea that like the assumption of like jumping from like a policy or moving towards a policy of more open borders, that somehow that automatically just means that all humans on the planet will teleport into America is just like it's silly on its face, and it's a bad faith engagement. Like, it's not a good argument. First of all, there are tons of people who don't have any desire to immigrate to America. The idea that that the moment that you open the borders, every single person on the planet will rush to America is like is like zealous American exceptionalism of an unbelievable degree.
Let's just give me a number. How many can we accept?
There are also, I mean, there are other things that are sort of in the way of this as well, which is that like if there was a point where there was no more housing space in the United States, why would anybody come to the United States if they were leaving from those conditions? People are coming here because because a lot of people are coming here either out of a desire to come to America because they want to be in this particular place, or because they are in a location where there is much less economic prosperity, and therefore they're hoping to come to a place where they can contribute to and be a part of that economic prosperity.
I mean, like, it's kind of hard for like immigrants to like go to LA and be like, oh boy, I'm a janitor. I'm gonna pay $5,000 a month for a one-room apartment. This is gonna be great. It's like there's gonna be other factors that would stop people from immigrating to areas.
Look at his source. It's actually pretty compelling.
Think of it this way: like the only.
I mean, it's easy to just yell that
more of a drain on society than immigrants. Babies come out absolutely useless. They can't do anything productive other than like crop themselves, and they stay that way for years and years and years. They're a huge drain on society until they get old enough to actually do something useful. And yet, what's our attitude towards babies? We're not having enough of them. Like, this is indisputable. So anything that you complain about immigrants being a drain on society is going to be much worse for babies. And yet it seems like
hell yeah,
more babies. We need more babies. We definitely need more immigrants, right?
I mean, here's the issue. Then if everything's saying, okay, if everyone's saying that immigration brings up your tax base, everything's great. So there's no limit to how many we should have, correct? More is always better, correct?
You don't need to artificially limit it. There are going to be natural limits, right? It's difficult.
It's the free market capitalism.
What are the natural limits? Why would there be natural limits?
Well, the natural limits is that you have to be able to. I mean, an immigrant's going to want to be able to survive here. They're going to want to need a place to live and a place to work.
Oh.
So they're going to need that in order before they come here, and they have to.
But wait, so then we could start from the assumption of, because I'm not the one who brought this up. I already gave my point on high skilled immigration. People said open borders. That's what they were talking about. Well, open borders means we don't have the right to tell anyone they can't come here. So when people respond to that by saying, well, it's always good, it always helps us economically, everything about it's positive. Okay, so no upper limit to it?
Wait, okay, hold on though.
Again, you don't need to regulate a limit specifically to immigration, right? Like, there are other things that will limit that naturally.
Okay, but if that natural limitation means that regardless if it's governmental limitation or it's people naturally limit, there's a point where too many immigrants would be a bad thing, correct?
Well, what do you mean? Like, if all these people sort of wandered into the country without any idea what they were going to do, conceivably that would be a problem, but we don't have to worry about that because people don't act that way. People, are smart enough to realize that they need a place to live before they come here.
Okay, so then they could overuse resources and places to live.
1 second. One quick second. I just want to put a small, reasonability limit on this conversation that seems to be completely ignored by normal America, which is the idea that people don't just teleport here. There is a cost involved in immigrating anywhere. There is a cost involved, and also
very expensive and hard.
It's very expensive, especially if you're in a country that's overseas. Now, while you may have some increased migration from the southern border or whatever, or maybe even the northern border. Who knows what sort of immigration we would see if there were no border, if there was no ridiculously strict border laws like we have. But if people go there and they aren't able to find work and they aren't able to find their place in society, then they will continue to somewhere where they can, right? Doesn't that mean that the within reason, obviously there's going to be some people might get stuck somewhere because they don't have the money, but if we encourage making it as easy as possible to move from place to place, then we'll find people will filter to where they are most comfortable and where they are most likely to be able to make a living. It's a natural balancer in that way.
But that's not going to happen around the world.
I think you have this assumption that just if you start to break down our arbitrarily strict borders, that all of a sudden just a bunch of people you don't like are going to teleport in and do bad things. But none of this is actually based in what we see, and it also doesn't make any sense on a simple logical level.
That's just, it doesn't make sense on a logical level. Then why have we not seen one country in history be totally open border? They're all dumber than you.
Oh, good question.
I mean, United States for 100 years.
There's a number of answers
voters
to that.
have dogmatic beliefs against foreigners.
No, it's because you have.
Let's be clear. There are a lot of countries that do not hold the same the sentiment you are ascribing America to have. Okay.
I just think that
this is
also like
no country does it, so it's bad. It's totally something.
The idea that there aren't any countries with like looser borders than ours is kind of silly, but also like keep in mind that there is a one of the main reasons for people drawing hard lines on borders is so they can enforce them militarily, so they can impose their will on people. This is something that I think that even happens here in the United States that we should be critical, that should be critiqued.
To directly address Rob, there are, well, if you depend on your definition of country, there are places with open borders. The European Union's Schengen zone is one such famous example, and it's done wonders for the European Union's economic prosperity. As for, if you want a real world example of a country with open borders, like I said, the United States for the first 100 years of its existence was an open borders nation.
Now, it wasn't totally open border, though. Like, for example, we could see that people weren't given totally equal rights that were here. Also, there was seemingly infinite resources to be used in land that needed developed. That's different than having an area where resources are now finite and we have a settled economy. Okay. And my point is,
resources are we running out of?
What my point? Then surely there's.
Let him finish his point. Rob, finish your point, and then LSB.
Right, and let me say just initially, like I talked about on the actual topic, the high-skilled immigration, I don't have a problem. I think we should focus on America first, but if there's jobs that can't be filled, I have no problem with bringing in immigration. You're the people that are saying open borders, right? And so when you say, oh, there are countries that have less strict borders, that's not what you all are advocating for. You said open borders. It's a disaster, and everyone knows inherently that it would be a disaster.
I'm a huge open borders advocate, but that's neither here nor there. Rob, you're using this argument that immigrants represent a drain on resources. What resources are they draining from us?
Environmental resources. For example, I posted 4 links that show environmental degradation that comes with illegal immigration and open borders.
Environmental degradation? Could you get a little more specific than that? Something that?
Yeah. For example, we could look at the national parks that are at the southern border, and we can see how they're being devastated because of illegal immigration that's coming through. There's also
wait.
Big Bend National Park, has it gone anywhere? Like, what do you mean? Like, how is it being degraded? How is it? Like, what resources being strained there?
They're overusing nature. They're destroying endangered species. They're.
Wait, if that's the problem, then wouldn't the solution just to make it legal immigration so they could take other routes?
The fact is that what those studies show that when you start to have immigration that's brought from people that are poor, they tend to be more of a drain on natural resources. And this makes sense. For example, let me finish real quick. We could see this in countries like India. When you had a poor population, the way that they're able to survive is through using more environmental resources. So, for example, the energy system that they use tends to be generators, or tends to be dirty coal technology and things like that. So that's the way things work. And also the idea that not many people would come.
You're just wildly making assertions at this point, and you're literally ignoring history. This is just wildly ahistorical.
All you do is interrupt people, and you don't bring anything intellectual to the point. But I enjoy your attempts.
All right. Well,
yes, I'm ignoring history. Show me all those countries with open borders. Oh, they don't have. They all enforce borders to some degree. In fact,
I was referring specifically to your inane bullshit that you were saying about India. I know you're getting really worked up because your lies are being challenged. But saying things like India is a dirty country because poor people are there is just one of the stupidest things I've heard issued on a panel.
I mean, of course you'll strawman that. That's not what I said.
The idea that a colonial state that was ruthlessly pillaged by the British Empire for generations is somehow worse because they only have access to dirty energy or whatever is ridiculous. And also, your concern trolling about the environment is incredibly silly when you recognize the fact that the United States is one of the biggest polluters of the planet, not just of national parks on the border, which are damaged, mind you, specifically because of our policies of immigration, but rather on a full level, on a mass level, the United States pollutes the entire planet to a level of unbelievable. Like your arguments are just completely incoherent and inconsistent with one another.
To refine what Demon Mom is saying, she's not wrong, but like the damage to the natural resources isn't coming from immigrants. It's coming from like polluters, like fossil fuel companies, fossil fuel extraction, and the fact that we are a car culture. Like that's where the damage to natural resources comes. To the environment, not just like I'm sorry, Prime. What's up?
No. I want to make sure that Rob gets a chance to respond to all of this. And it's a moment where he's not.
That seems to be the idea. Yeah. No, like, I get it. Like, you have to assert that, oh, I'm somehow saying people in India must be dirty because of their ethnicity or something. That's not what I'm doing. I'm making a point that everyone knows is true, that the poorer the poorer someone is, the more, whether it be their fault or someone else's fault, they have to use more natural resources in order to help them out of that poverty. For example, someone who's working 9 to 5 making $8 an hour probably has a more difficult time buying organic food, probably has a more difficult time getting green energy because it's more expensive. The same is true in India. You can't deal with that and just have to virtue signal that somehow I'm being racist by saying that. But as always, that's the sign of someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, is losing the argument. Now, the point that not many people would come.
Definitely.
Interrupting, also a good sign. I'm just going to start interrupting you as well, too. Like, I'll just start interrupting you as well. Like, the entitlement that you have is just really amazing. I really like it, though. It's nice to see someone who knows that intellectually they can't keep up, so they have to interrupt and just accuse people and virtue signal.
So Rob,
you're doing a good job
on all that. How
exactly
do poor people in America use more natural resources than rich people?
They tend to use the resources they use tend to be more of a burden onto the environment. The reason is this, because
Can you give an example, be specific?
Right. So, like, for example, I gave the national park that's in the southern border, the national parks that we see illegal immigration coming through, that they're more have to use those natural resources more. Let me give you an easy example. Do you think that as a poor person
doing to the
okay, so for example, read the article. It's like there's trash everywhere. They're uprooting wildlife. They're killing endangered species. All sorts of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, again, I'm a poor person. Let me give you another example.
That's exactly what you're
Let me
saying.
give you another.
Demon Mama, please.
Let me give you another example.
Let him respond and talk.
Like, I live paycheck to
finish your
paycheck.
point, and then we'll move on.
People in my area live paycheck to paycheck. Happen to be white people, poor white people, right? Oh, I must be making fun of white people. Do you think they have the ability to buy hybrid vehicles? Do you think that the vehicles they're buying are the best on gas mileage? Or are they the cheapest vehicles they could find that they punch out catalytic converters just so they can pass inspection? Like, this isn't
a cheap car.
Can I just address something real quick?
No. We gotta let other people in. Last year's name.
Okay, so I don't understand how poor are like particularly devastating to the environment. I mean, okay, you can't afford a hybrid car, but just be like an immigrant driving a regular car is not like a disaster that we need, that's going to destroy the environment. Maybe I don't see what the impact is that is so bad that we'd have to actually like exclude people from coming into the country.
The problem when I'm talking, real quick, I'll just say I'm talking about, first off, it is true, as the studies I've showed, it is true that people that are poor tend to be more of a drive using the base level natural resources, can damage natural resources.
It's not a study. It's a Washington Examiner article.
I want to hear from Dianbo. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to respond to last username. I don't know why Rob's making this argument. It's definitive that rich people cause more pollution. There's just more poor people. That's the problem. There's more poor people. So if we had less poor people, there'd be more emissions because they could afford to emit more.
Well, I assume we're talking about per person. Pollution.
Yeah, per person, rich people pollute more.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Because they've got access to more resources because they can afford more resources.
Right, but I'm talking about...
There's just more poor people. So.
No.
But this is also a... Can I say something now?
No. I want, first of all, Rob, you've been... someone asked that you put that study, and could you do that in either Twitch chat or a general chat as well? Because we want to.
I put 5 up. I put 5 up for the. I mean, like I could re-put them.
I want to see it.
Sure.
Sorry.
I put it in Twitch chat. Can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
Rob, like if your issue is illegal immigrants are tearing up these parks at the borders because they're crossing at this, and that's what this article more or less says, is that when they're crossing they end up hurting wildlife and fauna and flora, in the crossing because of dirt paths they're making and stuff like that. Let's solve this problem easy. Open the border. That way they come through paved roads. It fixes your problem.
Again, that's not all the studies are showing, but that shows one. I mean, this isn't controversial. I don't understand. Like, we can see, for example, if we can see throughout history, the more economically devastated a country becomes, the more likely they are to switch to cheap fossil fuels. And then once they switch to those cheap fossil fuels, that actually means that things like green energy isn't able to come. Like, we could see that green energy comes from places where the average person is making more money than the countries like India, where the average person isn't making that much money. I'm not making an indictment on people's race. I'm not even saying it's poor people's fault. And in fact, I think that Dan is right.
White nationalist think tank, dude. Like, you're citing a think tank founded by a eugenicist named John Tanton. If anybody doesn't know, Center for Immigration Studies is literally a white nationalist think tank. Like, some of their articles are written by people like Jason Richwine, who write for the alternative right. Like, you say this isn't an indictment on people's race, but this is the article. These are the people you're citing.
Who are you citing? The Cato Institute, libertarians that are against. First off, I don't know if that's from. I don't know if this. I have no proof that the person that wrote this specific article is a white nationalist. I don't know if the organization was endorsed by white nationalists. I don't know. I know these are studies that we talked about back in 2003 with debate. Like, show me. Put it up. Show me that the Center for Immigration Studies is white nationalist. Let's see your evidence.
Okay.
Matt Sweets, I believe Matt Sweets wrote that article. Can you show me Matt Sweets being a white nationalist?
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up this topic soon, but I want to let Demon Mama in.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a giant elephant in the room that kind of just totally throws this entire topic into the realm of absurdity, which is the fact that there is unbelievably overwhelming evidence that corporations are the biggest contributors to environmental damage, not poor people, not immigrants. So the idea that you would discount the responsibility of corporations and try to pin environmental damage on as we've shown by the linking of these stories, is a result of illegal crossings because they're not allowed to cross the border in a legal manner or in a safe manner. It's just totally dishonest and misleading to try and point at poor people and at and like make signals about like littering or something, like these sort of stereotypes of poor people when corporations are literally responsible for the biggest environmental disasters in history, including in India, the country that you cited before, the site of multiple Dow chemical factory explosions, which did horrific damage to the environment. So again, I reassert.
And Demon Mama, who works? Do poor people work at those corporations?
Are you channeling your inner gossip?
Yeah, the workers, the poor workers who were blown up in the factory that was mismanaged by Dow chemical executives. Damn them for getting blown up.
But they had the freedom to choose to work there. So
their giblets just polluted the local environment.
Beside the point.
Oh,
I just think it
makes you really
silly.
uncomfortable when people start criticizing certain metrics of influence, doesn't it? Never mind. Just go.
I mean, the thing is, Endernax, it would be hypocritical if they weren't also for workers' unions and labor laws, you know? I mean, it's kind of weird that they're also for those things, too.
Mm-hmm. Like, where pollution comes from is another topic that is interesting, but, I mean...
Yeah, but
does it come from... Does more immigration directly lead to more environmental damage? That seems like a stretch to me. Like
open borders, you can't have
what do corporations do? Producing things for people to consume.
5 billion people could not exist in the United States because there's not enough natural resources. Open borders would be a disaster. The fact that we can already see environmental degradation coming... I mean, right. You say...
How long would it take to get 5 billion into the U.S.?
I have no clue. We don't have a historical metric where some country, a developed country said, hey, we're going to give free healthcare, free everything to people, and there's going to be open borders. Come on in. That's never happened. Probably for good reason, because we know it would be a disaster. The very first thing that would happen, in addition to cultural problems you would get and systemic...
Borders, in the past.
No, not like this. For example, when we had supposedly open borders in the United States, did we offer free healthcare? Was there free hospital service for people, free education services for people? This is the Milton Friedman argument.
I'll let you quickly finish your point, and then we're gonna do our final statements on this.
Right. So it's just real quick. It's the Milton Friedman argument. You could have anyone that wants to come into this country and work, and if they're successful, stay, as long as you don't have a welfare state. But you can't have both. Because if you say we'll pay for anyone in the world to come in, and they get all these services, and if you don't work, well, you're still allowed to stay because we're open borders, it would be overran.
I'll make you a deal. If immigrants were ineligible for the welfare state, would you allow them in open border style?
No. Open borders are a disaster.
Even if they weren't eligible for any social assistance.
Well, then what would happen would be corporations, the same corporations that pollute that we were talking about here, they actually love that cheap labor. That's why they're for open borders. So what they would do is then hire these people that aren't able to.
Okay, well, what if they didn't pollute?
What's that?
And what if they didn't pollute? Then would you be fine with open borders then?
If they didn't employ them.
Finish that thought, then we will do closing statements. Finish that thought.
I just didn't hear Danbo, or I didn't hear him. That's all. LSP.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna go down line and all right. Sorry, Dylan. Final thoughts on this topic. Dylan.
There is no Dylan. There's only Zool.
Dylan, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. The RNC was in the background and it gave me like a half-second stroke. Sorry, I'm back.
Okay. Could you give your final thoughts on this, and we're going to move on to our final topic.
Everybody already knows I'm not an open borders guy. I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have. While I do think they had better argumentation in this discussion and probably dragged me a little bit closer to them during the dialogue that was done here. I think high skill immigration is definitely something not only is something we should be okay with. It's something we should openly as a government encourage high skill immigration. I think it's going to be necessary for us to be competitive economically on the world stage. I think Japan has definitely as one country that was an economic powerhouse going into the 20th century. After in the 80s was really rocking it, and partially due to like horrible immigration policies, actually like kind of like flatlined extremely. And I think that us having accessible to a large scale labor force is going to be extremely important. I also think that immigrants are the class that built this country, and I do still believe in the words that were engraved on the Statue of Liberty. I do believe in that lighting a little bit on just a tiny bit about that light on the shining hill, and I do think that we should be with welcome open arms, allowing people into this country, because I think immigrants are a benefit to this country, and I think in the long term, even of what is considered low skill immigration, is in the long term better for the American workforce overall, and better for the country overall. So I'm not only am I like okay with immigration, I'm a pro immigration person. I am 100% pro immigration.
Okay. We're gonna enter next.
Can't hear you, buddy.
Wait, all right, can you hear me now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. I said at the beginning, I am for the encouragement of high-skilled immigration. I'm going to let as many people in as we could possibly handle. That's great. As far as high-skilled immigration goes, I am more skeptical of open borders. I don't think this is a great idea. I kind of teased as to one reason I might be against unfettered immigration. Another reason is that within our current system, this would allow individuals like let's say you had someone like Last Username or Bastion running a business. They would love to get their hands on some low-skilled immigrant labor that they could exploit for like $2 an hour. I mean, these people, that's really just scummy. They want like a servant slave class.
Let's not call Bastion out. I think you call it. Is that you said Bastion?
Well, I did, but he said on your stream he's for open borders. You should be able to walk over and sell your labor, and there should be no minimum wage. Well, he literally said that though.
Call out any of the people here. Let's not call out anyone who's not here to defend themselves.
All right. Listen, I'm friends with Bastion. I'm sure he would say that's an accurate take. But all right, I won't call him out. All right, listen, they just want to open. It's the Cato Institute. It's the Koch brothers. They want to bring all the immigrants in. They want to pay them $2 an hour to work at their cheap, like, it's literally disgusting work. It's jobs at like processing chickens and working in fields. They want literal slave labor for $2 an hour. They want to get rid of the minimum wage. It's all a Trojan horse. I'm really worried about this. We need to make sure that we have the proper institutions before we even have that discussion.
Okay. Next, we will go to Adi Mama.
Yeah, I would say that that the easy way to counter the exploitation of workers is to address that head on with worker ownership and unions and regulation of large corporations. I don't think that these things are in competition with one another, and in fact, I think that with increased immigration and a healthier economic system, a healthier approach to our economy, we would actually improve ourselves quite a lot. I believe that immigrants of all types should be allowed in, and also that we should invest. We should be willing as a country to invest in the skills of our people. Societies are built around human beings, after all, not profits or whatever other invented what's the right word, abstractions that people can use for measuring certain things. Those can be helpful in us coming to a conclusion, but at the end of the day, this society serves people. That's the entire purpose of it. I think that a lot of these arguments that are anti-immigrant are often based off of either misconceptions or downright dishonesty, and they often trend into demonizing people from other places and people who don't happen to have a lot of income, despite the fact that the overwhelming amount of environmental and economic upset is caused by large corporations. So yeah, immigration is very good. America is a country of immigrants, and that's a good thing. So yeah, that's my position.
Okay. I'll ask your name.
Right. So we started talking about high-skilled immigration. Well, first of all, let me just drop this link in chat to a book that makes the case for open borders much better than I ever could, with covers all the things we've been talking about tonight, and has lots of data and citations and everything. So I'm not going to dwell on that too long. But we were supposed to be talking about high-skilled immigration. And oh, wow, even if you have a problem with open borders, I mean, high-skilled immigration is a really, really easy case. I mean, high-skilled immigrants are like uncontrovertibly a huge benefit to society. We need them. They, they bring a tremendous value to us. I work in, the tech industry as my day job. And this is an industry where there's been a shortage of high-skilled workers for 20, 30 years or something, where an industry where the only thing, the main thing that stops absolutely everyone in this industry from starting their own business is just the fear that they won't be able to hire enough employees to work for them. Everyone would be self-employed if they could bring in people from other countries to work at their business. There's so much untapped productivity and value that we could have if we could just bring in people from other countries, freely. There's just no reason to oppose this. And as far as, low-skilled workers coming in to work at my awful, horrible jobs, I mean, yeah, if someone from another country wants, I mean, I'm not actually doing that, but if I want to hire someone for cheap to do some job, and someone wants to come from the other side of the world to do that job for me for cheap, who is Endernax to stand in the way? This makes you uncomfortable. You're going to come to
a moral
us and
arbiter.
be like, whoa, hold on, you two. I don't like this idea of you two working for each other, even though you're both okay with it. Even though this person is probably coming from some much shittier place where they have much, much worse prospects. I don't like it, so I'm not going to allow it. I mean, no, get out of the way. It's none of your business. So yeah, there you go.
All right, Danabo.
Talking about moving to shittier places. As an immigrant that spent over $10,000 and 3 years to gain residency just to move to Arkansas, I am 100% against open borders. Do not move here. Do not come to Arkansas. It's a shittier place than where I came from. But really, high-skilled workers, yeah, as I pointed out before, there is a correlation between high-skilled workers and low-skilled workers. If you're going to increase the number of high-skilled workers, then the low-skilled workers' wages will increase, but eventually you might run out of them, so you'd have to increase both. But in general, American exceptionalism is built on immigration, and it's built on the fundamental principle of importing high-skilled workers. That's how America got to #1 in the first place. That's how you were ahead in technology. It was your immigrants. So keep them coming.
All right, Rob, and then Ellis will close us out after that.
Yeah,
Rob.
so on the original question, I do think that we need to focus on America first and in making sure that everyone here has opportunity to get those high-skilled jobs and the education to get them before we seek to bring in people from outside the country. It is the role of our government to protect the citizens of this government first and to work for them, and too often we see that that's not the case. Open borders fanatics seek to want to cure the ills of the world before focusing on the downtrodden in this country. But if we can't fill those positions, then yeah, I have no problem with bringing in the the high-skilled labor from abroad, as long as it's not too massive numbers that would overflow and damage the country. The discussion switched to open borders, which is nonsense. The point about what we see with environmental resources, it's just poor people tend to have to use the land more. It's not their fault. I was just making the point that we could see that already in the numbers we have coming now, that there are slight problems. Certainly, I agree that corporations and pollutions and things like that have been very bad for the environment, and that overwhelmingly is worse. But the point is, there is a finite amount of resources in this country. That means that if we had open borders, especially if we had the welfare system that was being offered from many of the same people that propose open borders, we would have a mass influx of millions of people that would then overuse our system and it would be drained. When they're citing statistics that talk about how immigration is good for the economy, they're citing people like the Cato Institute, who are also against the welfare system. So you can't have both, as Milton Friedman said. If you want open borders, fine, but that you can't have a welfare system. It wouldn't help to have a welfare system for just the American citizens, but not for the illegal immigrants, because then you lead to what Endernach's talked to, which is basically a slave state where we're saying we want cheap produce, therefore we want illegal immigrants to come in and work for $1 an hour. If you say, oh no, we'll pay them more, we'll pay them a wage that would be a living wage for an American, then the argument that Americans are unwilling to do it seems to go out the window, because the prices would go up anyways. You would have to pay them what you would pay an American to work anyway. So the people that want, it's like Demon Mama talks about these evil corporations. I agree. A lot of corporations do terrible stuff. They totally agree with Demon Mama's politics. They're there right now saying, yes, open borders. Please give us that cheap labor. We'd absolutely love it. Thank you so much. So that's the kind of weird dichotomy you get when you start to advocate for things like this. The reason that no country in the history of the world, developed countries, had total open borders is because it's not feasible. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that there would be cultural problems, there would be poverty problems, there would be all sorts of problems. We all know it. We just won't admit it because we think that it makes us sound virtuous to suggest it.
Okay. We'll go to LSP, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Thank you. Unfortunately, there's a giant pile of bullshit that Rob just laid down, and I'm gonna have a really long, hard time deconstructing all of this. So he basically said, if you're for open borders, it's going to hurt this country, right? Except it doesn't. Grows the economy. This one is pretty much irrefutable. There is so much data. If you want, I can give you mountains of data that details all the ways immigrants contribute to growing this economy. They do, because they grow the supply of consumers. They grow the supply of laborers. Something like 30% of all entrepreneurial startups are from immigrants, right? This became a broader debate about immigration rather than what the topic was about, because that's how this always is going to develop. Everyone's issue with immigration, their opposition to this, isn't going to be based on this pure, one question. They're going to have a broader opposition to it. The other thing Rob neglects is that immigrants lower crime. They come here and they commit fewer crimes per capita than American-born citizens. And what that does is it lowers the crime rate. You're safer in an immigrant neighborhood than you are in a neighborhood full of other American citizens, oddly enough. So that argument doesn't work. We got the economic argument work. We got the crime argument out. Neither of these arguments work in Rob's favor. So Rob's issue, because he tried to nail down very specific issues that were totally out of left field, was, well, immigrants hurt the environment. And how did immigrants hurt the environment? Well, they cross illegally. And they destroy the environment while they're crossing illegally. And, well, this doesn't seem like it would be hard to solve. Just legalize their crossing, right? Legalize immigration. They'll cross on the road, right? You don't have to destroy the environment at all to let these immigrants over. Make it easy to immigrate here, and they won't have to sneak over deserts and national parks. That seems like it's an easy problem to solve. Rob is embracing a very collectivist view of immigration and protectionism that I'm almost 100% sure Rob would reject outright if we just replace some of the arguments he's making with guns. If we made these protectionist arguments about guns and the sort of gun culture and all the negative, externalities that this sort of a culture brings, I'm pretty sure Rob would oppose all of these on the basis of individual rights. All I'm doing is using Rob's argument, but for the freedom of movement. The freedom of movement is an individual right. Everything else you're going to talk about, the welfare state, it's an argument against the welfare state. Environmentalism, that's an argument against pollution. All of these other externalities are things you solve separate and independent of immigration. There.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to our final topic. Okay. So, final topic. The Trump administration has often been called fascist / proto-fascist. Is that a fair description? Since the popular definition of fascism is vague and poorly defined, is this label useful or does it muddy the public discourse? So, anyone else?
Can I just start so people can yell at me?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so there's a couple of problems with this description. It's for one, it's not really accurate. Two, the word fascist is thrown around too easily. Based on like even like the most Marxist social scientists have come out. The individuals who have studied fascism like as their job for the last 40 years have been like, actually, no, Donald Trump's not really a fascist. He's too much of an individualist, and he doesn't entirely reject democracy, even though he's not entirely for it either. And also, like part of being a fascist involves this idea of being like very together and like group identity, country, nation above self. But Donald Trump is notably not this. I think there was an individual who said he was best described as like a conservative populist. An individual who wrote I think the book was called The Nature of Fascism, and like talked about how Donald Trump is maybe like a paternal liberal or an apartheid liberal or something in the book. And anyways, I just don't think the label applies. And if you want to use it, fine, go ahead. But I just think it's been too commonly used in vernacular.
An essential element of a fascist or any sort of authoritarian leader is the ability to engender loyalty in your immediate underlings. That's absolutely essential. And Trump, that is something that Trump seems to have absolutely no ability to do. Like anybody who works for him just seems to inevitably turn on him and quit and write a book about how horrible he is. So, I mean, if he's trying to be a fascist, he is failing as spectacularly as he possibly can at it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh yeah. To address whether Trump should be considered a fascist, I think it's an absolutely rational application of the term. In fact, on my stream, just as a small exercise, we went over some of Trump's speeches most recently, specifically, and compared them to Umberto Eco's like 14 points for fascism, and he hit most of them. I believe it was like 12 out of the 14 or whatever. It's a fair accusation to say, especially recently. While I would agree that like it was probably a stretch early on in Trump's first 4 years, the way that he has changed as he's become more intense and desperate has absolutely gone in a fascist direction. And in fact, his most recent ads all prominently feature like mass patriotism. I mean, on his current platform that the RNC has adopted without question, they just literally took his. They have references to a well-known a Jewish question dog whistle about globalists. They're talking about American exceptionalism being taught in schools, but they want to push that being taught in schools. To me, that is pretty obvious forms of hyper-nationalistic, super militaristic cult of personality around Donald Trump that absolutely meets the definition of fascism but by nearly every definition of fascism. While you could argue that he's incompetent personally, and maybe sometimes he's leaned on individualist rhetoric, I don't think that falls out of line with the historical understanding of how fascists operate politically. So yeah, I think it's very fair to call him a fascist, especially most recently, as we've seen how he responds to protest. While there were some protest early on in Donald Trump's first 4 years, the protests that have emerged now, and he's responded with such force, going so far as to advocate for violence against them.
Demon, do you know about I'm just going to list a couple of parties and just like tell me which ones you know. The United Kingdom Independence Party, the Marine Le Pen, and the like National Front in France, the Alternative for Germany, Sweden Democrats, Party for Freedom in the Netherlands. Are you aware of any of these?
Yeah, I'm aware of a number of them. Yep.
Would you like call these parties or the leaders of these parties fascists as well?
I would say, I mean, the ones that I'm familiar with, yes, they absolutely pander to the same things, but it's really hard to say because, again, my wheelhouse isn't European politics. I know, but Marine Le Pen especially comes to mind as having leaned very heavily on fascist rhetoric, hyper-nationalism, pro-militarism, interventionalism, stuff like this. So, yeah.
I was going to ask because every single one of those parties listed is like has literally used rhetoric almost worse than Donald Trump, and in some cases actually worse than anything Donald Trump has said. And a lot, but the thing is that political scientists and why can I not think people who record history for some reason? Historians. I don't know why my brain doesn't work, but they refer to these people as like populist demagogues or conservative populists or whatever. They don't refer to them as fascists. So like that's the only thing is like when you call somebody a fascist, it's like basically like you're irredeemable, you're done, like you're done as a person. Your entire thing, you're nothing but evil. Nothing you say ever has any validity whatsoever. You're just about lying to the public to garner support for your evil government, to take control, to gain power, to kill all the
I mean, I don't know about that. I just think that just to respond, since you were directly addressing what I was saying.
Yeah.
I don't obviously, like, I imagine that for historians there's going to be an abundance of caution in like sort of labeling something that's currently unfolding as anything, but I think for the purposes of political analysis we can absolutely see how not only has Donald Trump leaned on historically understood fascist behaviors, but also that he's leaning further into it, and the trajectory of his administration seems to only be getting worse. And again, I will point to the fact that as protest has arisen to some of the most problematic elements of politics in our country, he has responded with utmost force, and not only done that, but also empowered the voices of other people who are even more extreme than himself, going so far as to say that people who oppose fascism should be labeled as domestic terrorists, which is an absurd claim. That alone should be enough to say this guy is definitely in the ballpark of a fascist, for sure.
Okay, we'll go to LSP, and then we'll throw it up to Dylan.
Yeah, oddly enough, I found myself agreeing with Demon Mama here. It's giving me a bit of a heart attack. I don't like that. Some of the arguments preferred here, like one was that Trump is individualist, so he can't be a fascist. Like that. I don't know.
That's not an argument made by me. Just that's a claim made by sociologists or a sociologist.
They're dumb if they're making it. Like Trump is far from an individualist.
All right.
Like let's look at the different whims and policies Trump has, right? He characterizes Mexicans coming over as rapists, right? Like he makes an entire ban on transgender people in the military. Like everything Trump does or tries to inspire in law, it's not on the basis of it from an individualist perspective. He groups people into collectives and then he penalizes them or awards them on the basis of that collective. Except, oddly enough, when there's good people on both sides of a white nationalist rally. So I don't find Trump to be an individualist. He's an extreme collectivist. Last username's argument was that, well, Trump doesn't inspire loyalty, so he must not be a very good fascist. Hitler's deputies tried to kill him. They literally put a bomb next to him. He really does try to inspire loyalty. Trump demands loyalty, and this is the thing that Comey said was that, well, Donald Trump wanted to promise. Donald Trump wanted Comey to promise Trump his loyalty, right? And Comey only said, "I'd promise the honesty," right? If you think that fascists work on the inspiration of loyalty, Trump seems to be very caring about how loyal people are to him, which I think might explain why he lashes out so much when he perceives even the slightest slight. When you go down, and again, Echo is just one philosophy. There's a lot of different philosophies of fascism, but you go down Echo's points, you're going to find, well, the enemy is both weak and strong. The Democrats are both incompetent, but also corrupt. They're spying on my campaign. They're inventing this Russian hoax, but also they're so incompetent they can't do X, Y. They're do nothing. There's all sorts of internal contradictions in Trump's framework that would align well with the 14 points by Echo. What we can, because fascism is really hard to nail down for what it specifically is, because it's a chameleon ideology. It doesn't have any one political thing that you can ascribe to it other than power. Power is central to fascist ideology. There is not a libertarian fascist. Libertarianism and fascism are incompatible with one another, right? That's about the only thing you could say about fascism. It is the absolute power of the state, and Trump seems to want that absolute power. He seems to buck checks and balances at every possible turn he can. I don't know what other word you would use to describe somebody who does this. Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants that power. We can probably assume that any politician wants as much power as they can get. I mean, it's not the lack of want of power that keeps America not fascist. What keeps America non-fascist is its institutions and its constitution and the norms and such
that you want to destroy.
That keep that individual ambition in check. So how much? So let me ask this: how much of a risk to those mechanisms is Donald Trump compared to other presidents of the past?
So he's not much of a risk to it because we're very institutionally centered on checks and balances. We are designed, like, I know everyone likes to meme on the American system. Demon Mama probably hates it, but you know what? We're like the we're like the ginger root for like fascist politics because we do divide power. So, and we kind of value that so much. So even if Trump is a fascist, he's what happens when a fascist runs into checks and balances. Which is what I would describe him as. He's a fascist who runs into checks and balances. If you gave Trump the ability to do anything he wanted, I think he would absolutely do everything he wanted. And I don't think you could say the same for a Barack Obama figure. Huh?
Is that so unique to Donald Trump, or is he just more transparent?
I'm sure there's... I wouldn't say it's unique to Donald Trump. Yeah, go for it, Dylan.
Like, I just assume all politicians are more or less like that, right?
I don't know if I want to use the word fascist. This is what I will say about Trump, mostly because I don't really know how to properly use the word. But this is what I will say about Donald Trump. He's extremely authoritarian. The types of people he surrounds himself with and shows himself in good light with is pretty authoritarian. I mean, from a foreign policy perspective, right? This is somebody who completely skirts international law. This is somebody who has refused to join, and this would be criticism of other presidents as well, the International Criminal Court. This is somebody who against international law, and you can make this, and I will debate people to the ends of the earth on this. He killed Soleimani. This is somebody who behind closed doors told Xi Jinping that he was okay with his concentration camps, and he has said publicly that he didn't really want to bring up the Uyghur issue during trade negotiations because it could hurt trade negotiations, showing that he valued that economic trade more than the human lives that could be affected by active concentration.
So does every liberal
being operated. Wait, that's not true. The Democrats have
you made a case for the liberal.
What
you
are
made
you
a case for
talking
the
about?
average liberal. What do you mean?
Wait. So the average liberal was like, let's kill Soleimani. I thought the Democrats were pretty against
No. I'm talking about the concentration camps.
No. The average liberal.
Don't care about
I don't know
those.
what you're talking about. Okay. LSP, you're the average liberal. You basically are. Do you support China and their concentration camps? And think we should just shut up about it? Oh, okay.
Oh, would you put
Wow.
sanctions?
Wow.
Would you put sanctions on China and bring back
Of
U.S.
course.
industry?
Wait, what do you?
Oh,
okay,
you would.
fuck up.
Interesting.
Oh,
The
weird.
mask is
Wait,
on tonight, boys.
Edgar,
I don't
Edgar.
care. Hey,
Ender,
don't give
you
these
and
people
Ender
power.
next. You are
They're
a
such
lying
liars.
dog.
They're such liars.
You are a
dude.
lying
They're-
dog.
No, you're a
You know
weaselly
it.
little liar,
Let me
dude. You're a
finish my
weaselly little liar.
You
dude.
know
Okay.
it.
Dude,
All
you're
right.
weak.
Okay.
You snake.
Great.
Let me finish, okay? Look, so, I mean, Endernax might, play dumb here and pretend that the vast majority of the American public, including most certainly liberals, are against what China is doing and want action on it. I mean, Joe Biden's rhetoric towards China has definitely heightened as of late, and Joe Biden was the vice president who started freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, literally sending the United States Navy through the South China Sea. He opened that policy, and it
Which
wasn't.
son has more business connections to China?
Oh, I didn't know that was a big factor towards the liberal. Look at this. Look at Endernex. He's just a cute little boy in his little suit. He's so great.
Okay. Let's stick to
Wait. If we're gonna talk about whose son had more interest in business in China, who actually had business interests in China? You son of a bitch. Okay.
What are you talking about? I don't know what. That's
Okay.
free market enterprise.
Oh yeah.
We are
And
moving away from the
either
topic.
way. And then I also think of Donald Trump. He helped facilitate an ethnic cleansing in northeastern Syria and stepped out away for another authoritarian, Erdogan, to just allow the troops to move in there. And he said that they needed.
But what about Hillary Clinton?
Okay,
Dylan?
Endernax, fucking shut up, okay? Okay, I'm just gonna mute you in a second, actually.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, he actually said that they needed to clean out the area, and Hillary Clinton was part of the administration that started Operation Inherent Resolve, so I doubt she would have pulled out of northeastern Syria. Okay, damn, Jesus, I can't say anything without Endernax jumping on me and trying to meme.
Listen, man. I'm just saying, if it wasn't for Hillary Clinton's emails, we wouldn't know. Okay, I can't. All right, go ahead, everybody.
Yeah,
else.
I just wanted to. Oh, I think
So,
Rob wants to get in.
Yeah, I'll go to Rob, and then after that, Demon, and then Dianbo. All right.
Okay.
Rob.
So, let's see some things that defines fascism according to our panel. Patriotism, that makes you a fascist. American exceptionalism, that makes you a fascist. Calling out globalist, that makes you a fascist. If you don't, appreciate the globalist corporations. I'm glad to see Demon Mama's for the globalist
Can you define
corporations.
globalism for me, though?
Sure, I can define globalism, the movement that we shouldn't have national borders and we shouldn't have the interests of nation states. We should have a one world government. They said responding to protest. So if you respond to the people rioting and burning down cities, then you're a fascist. Interventionism, which is why all of the Democrats, the neocons that are at the DNC, that they want these forever wars, that anytime Trump suggests pulling out of a place like Afghanistan, Syria, they go nuts. But somehow it's now fascist to pull out of the wars as well, apparently. He said all Mexicans were rapists. That's a lie. He did not say that. He cited studies that showed that about 30% of the women crossing the border are victims of sexual assault. He did not say all Mexicans are rapists. He said that there's a lot of bad people coming. They say focusing on group collective means fascism. Can you articulate to me which party an objective person would think would be more focused on a group collective? Trump or the party that seeks to divide us by race? The Republican Party, which seeks to divide us or define us as a nation, regardless of our skin color, versus the Democratic Party that wants to say white people are fragile. It's all about dividing based on your skin color or your gender, things like that. Then LSP repeats the good people on both sides lie. Trump did say there were good people on both sides. He gave 3 speeches on it. He condemned racism in all 3 of them. He specifically called out neo-Nazis and the KKK. But I understand that, again, these real fascists that we see, like people on the panel here that's pushed that lie, they're trying to divide us by race and encouraging racial division.
Wow,
they talk about Comey. They talk about Comey and about how he was asked to be loyal. Yes, real fascists like the Democrats under Obama, they actually weaponized the most powerful intel agency in the history of the world, and they did so to engage in a coup against Donald Trump, spying on a president and his campaign. We actually had someone plead guilty to the fact that they changed evidence. We actually had the top person at the FBI that signed off on those, Christopher Wray. It meant he would have never signed off on them if he knew that the FBI was.
Rob, you're hitting a lot of different things. You're going like all
over. Listen, Prime. I will not be back on your show, and here's why. When people make comments and they give this litany of stuff, and I get like a little bit of time to talk.
I can go for it one by one.
Then I'm not allowed to respond. Did I bring up one thing that wasn't brought up here? Did they bring up the Mexican rapists?
No,
Did they bring up Comey?
Took them out of context and completely misrepresented any of our arguments.
What you all want is
Rob.
One at a time.
All right, peace, guys. We'll see you, Demon. You'll get what you want. You get to interrupt people and just yell because it makes you feel good because you don't have an argument. Prime, you get what you want. Just a bunch of lefties talking about the issues. You don't want people to respond. I get it. I get what you people are trying to do. I've sat here patiently. I don't interrupt people. I'm just tired of this nonsense. It's just garbage. If you want everyone to agree, that's fine. That's what you can have your panel.
Okay, I'm gonna server mute you for a second. Rob, I've been very kind to you. I don't see why you're attacking me now. I was just saying that I felt like you were going off in a couple of different directions here, and it was a lot. That's all I said. And I don't know.
Do you tell anyone else when they
coming from? But all right, I'm gonna unmute you. You can finish making your point, buddy. But
anger. There's no anger. It's just I'm the only person that it seems you say, no, you can't take it in this direction. So someone could repeat the lie that, Trump said all Mexicans are rapists, but I can't respond to it.
I said that once. I said that once. I'm sorry. I said that once, and it's not like it's an ongoing thing. How many directions have I given you today, Rob?
That's twice now. You said before, Rob, we're not going to talk about Black Lives Matter when I was responding. Like, I don't care. I could just head out. It's no problem. It's no problem. Look, I wish you guys well. Okay. It's no problem. Good luck. Have a good time. It's funny to see a bunch of people that are complaining about fascists saying, no, you have to stick to a certain topic point. We don't want you to bring up when the other side's fascist.
Are you done crying now?
No, I'm not crying at all. I'm having fun pointing out to a bunch of fascists that need to interrupt. This is always your cry bully tactics. Cry bully tactics of Demon Mama here again. We know you're such a victim, Demon Mama. You have to interrupt people and speak over them because you don't have anything to say. You're such a victim. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. So, all right, we'll see y'all.
So, Janabo, you wanted to say something? All right.
Yeah, if I can just respond, try and calm this down a little bit. The problem is, Yeah, the problem with calling everything.
Hey y'all, what up? Yeah, I'm not putting up with that anymore. Screw them. They have no argument, none whatsoever. What did I say? Like literally, if you see here, I wrote down exactly what they said and responded. That's what I did. They get to talk for 30 minutes and then they want me to talk and just be like, yes, I guess Trump's a fascist. Right, that's exactly what they're saying. I can't call. What was the part where he said, whoa, is going too far? What? Talking about James Comey engaged in a coup? That's what fascist governments do, right? But I can't bring up that point. It's total nonsense. It was the same was true when we were talking about Black Lives Matter on a previous, like the topics that they want. Rob, do you think Trump beats his wife a little or a lot? Actually, I don't think he beats his wife. Whoa, stay on topic. I didn't get to say my piece on all of the topics. I find it ironic someone like Demon Mama would criticize potentially not wanting to vote for someone who seems to have an anti-scientific belief, such as believing in creationism, and presumably she believes men could be women. I don't say that as someone I'm friends with trans people. I don't have a problem with it. But how could I've defended Secretary Levine, for example, in Pennsylvania, who's transgendered, despite the unscientific beliefs that men could be women. I don't think that has any place in the attacks on her. How would Demon Mama feel if someone said, I don't believe that's a scientific position, therefore I won't vote for a trans person, or I think that I should attack them if I don't like the politics they're doing? I didn't get to say that because I knew everyone would throw a fit and I didn't have time. But this is the type of nonsense that I put up with all the time with them. Now, I sit there patiently. I don't interrupt, right? Everybody saw that. I'm not calling people terrible people. I'm accused of I'm dog whistling towards racist. I'm doing this or that. It's utter nonsense. I don't have to put up with it. I don't get anything from doing these shows. And I'm just sick and tired of being told that, did you see Prime? Everyone else is allowed to respond when someone directly talks about them. Me, I have to sit there and wait patiently. When I want to bring up an issue that's tangential or at least related to the topic, I'm not allowed to do it. They're allowed to bring up anything that they want. I mean, it's nonsense. They know that they can't debate. They know that they can't compete in the marketplace of ideas, so they have to censor and just complain and yell and scream. Yeah, right. And that's the irony, which I was getting to, which the irony is the way they define fascism is a bunch of stuff that colloquially it's not even things that we identify as fascist. They could talk about eco all they want, but when we talk about fascism, the last speaker was right. We're talking about authoritarianism and things like that. Who seems more authoritarian there? Who is it? Is it the one saying that conservatives can't speak on campus, that they have to interrupt you, that they have to make personal attacks, things like that the whole time? Is that the fascist? Right? Grouping us? Like, and I get it. Like, I get PrimeCayes and most of the people on that panel are big Black Lives Matter supporters. I was going to get to it. They said it's fascism to call people terrorists that are burning down cities. Yes, they are terrorists. They're using violence to achieve a political end. That's terrorism. And see what they want to do. If you're patriotic, that's fascist. If you're America first, that's fascist. If you're against globalism, that's fascist. What else did they say? If you're responding to protest, that's fascism. Interventionism is fascism, but not when they advocate it, right? Now, it's fascism for Trump to ask Comey to be loyal, but it's not fascism for the Obama administration to weaponize his intel community to spy on Donald Trump. That's not fascism, apparently. Good to know. They say, he goes through Umberto Eco, he cites one of his 14 points of fascism. He says, it's saying that your enemy's weak and yet they're strong at the same time. How does that not perfectly explain what the Democrats do to Trump? They say he's a bumbling fool that's not capable of anything, but he's the most shrewd, intelligent president ever that was able to be a spy of Vladimir Putin and get away with it. That's exactly what the Democrats do. Every single thing that they're mentioning, we could see that was done worse by Democrats. They say, the next thing he said was, it's about power. It's about wanting power in the centralized government. Which party do you think wants a bigger government to control your life? Could it be the party saying we're going to, Green New Deal, we're going to eliminate all of these jobs, the government's going to come in, the government tells you have to wear masks, the government says this, that, and the other, you can't go to church, but you can go to the... Which party's advocating that? Oh, that's the Democratic Party as well. But they don't consider that fascism. They say that they skirt international law. Oh, like when Obama and his team killed Gaddafi? Yes, there have been presidents, including Trump, that haven't listened to international law. Most of the times the international laws are bad, and they didn't have a problem with the Democrats did it. Joe Biden skirted international law. They talk about China and how somehow Joe Biden would be better for China. That's a joke. Joe Biden's son got $1.1 billion energy deal from China. Joe Biden pays a lot of lip service to supposedly what he's going to do to China, but he doesn't do it. He had his chance when he was vice president. He didn't do much. And then the Democrats simultaneously want to say, oh, Joe Biden, they'll do something about the Uyghur Muslims. Yet at the same time, they freak out that Trump's protectionist policies are hurting the country. He's trying to escalate a war on China. Trump was racist for wanting to stop, during COVID, wanting to stop people coming in from China. Trump's racist for attacking China on some of the abuses they have. It's terrible. Oh, it's horrible. But oh yeah, we're against China and the Uyghur Muslims. Yeah, it looks like the Democrats are doing a good job of it. Heck, the NBA won't even mention it. What else did they say? Dylan goes on about the Kurds. What that argument's about is Dylan blames Trump for pulling out of Syria. And he blames that. Then our allies, Trump also was against sending as much money to NATO and stuff like that. The entire Democratic establishment said that Trump was horrible to not support our NATO allies. But at the same time, they say, oh, and we have to leave troops in Syria because our NATO ally, Turkey, wants to commit genocide against all the Kurds. So Dylan says the fact that Trump pulled out proves that somehow he's a fascist. Pulling troops out. Now, you might say it was a bad idea, but pulling troops out proves that you're a fascist? This is utter nonsense. So let me see some of the chat here. Of course, I didn't get to say any of that because I guess that's all off topic. Pointing out their hypocrisy is off topic. Let's see what we got here. But I do like to go on there and try to argue in good faith. Now, you go back and rewatch the tape. I'll put it up on my channel tomorrow. You see who was rude first. It wasn't me. Demon Mama comes at me, I don't know, interrupts everything I try to say. They won't let me get a word in edgewise. And then, basically it's 6-on-1, or there's people talking about other stuff when I'm trying to bring up something specific. I mean, when I brought up the Me Too movement, the reason I was bringing it up is because it's okay for them to insult you. Oh, Trump's a fascist, and, dogmatic people that believe in creation. Okay, let's look at dogmatic views. Can't we see those on the left as well? I even made it a point to say, look, you see it on the right as well. You go up to someone, you say, look, here's a position Obama did, and the left's like, that's great. And you're like, actually, Trump did it. Oh, then I hate it. You could do that with Trump supporters. You go up and say, here's a policy Trump issued, and they'd be like, that's great. And then when you're like, actually, that was Obama, they'd be like, oh, not everyone, but that certainly happens. That's dogma. Just believing the other guy's bad or the other party's always bad and using that to determine whether or not you agree with policies. I was trying to be magnanimous about that, but I was attacked and blah, blah, blah. And they had to lie and say, oh, that's not what the Me Too movement is. And then another thing you see from people like Demon Mama, which I find absolutely hilarious, is they interrupt you, they'll call you racist and stuff like that. And when you say, yeah, I'm not putting up with this shit, they go, oh, what are you going to cry? No, I'm not going to cry at all. I don't need this, Demon Mama. I do this. It doesn't help me whatsoever. I don't get any donations from these videos. I don't get increased viewership from the videos hardly at all. I still got like 3-4 people that watch me on Twitch most times. I don't care. I just do it because I like putting my views out there, and I appreciate that some people like listening to me, even if they disagree with me. And I'm almost always polite to people, and I allow it to go on. But what I'm not going to do is allow someone to, to have an entire panel of people that's going to just interrupt me, say that I'm only allowed to talk about certain things and things of that nature. It's amateur hour. They don't know what they're doing. And I have no respect for Demon Mama whatsoever. I think that she doesn't have an argument. She talks a lot and she filibusters a lot, but she's not really saying anything worthwhile. I think that Prime is not a good host, unlike Dylan, which I'll have to consider whether or not I'll do Dylan's show this Friday, because I think I'm just tired of these 7-on-1 bet. Like, I don't mind if I get equal time and I'm allowed to say what I want. That's fine. I don't mind 7 people coming at me. Fine. But if I'm going to have the person that's running it keep saying, no, Rob, you can't talk about that. No, Rob, was I talking at length more than them? Of course not. I don't interrupt like them, so when I finally get a chance to talk, I try to respond to the 40 minutes worth of shit that they said. But I'm not allowed. So, okay, then Prime could find someone that they could bully around easier. No problem. But I'm glad that you all get to see how ridiculous they are, because that's what they believe. Like, for example, take something like open borders. That's what they believe. They think that they're citing the Cato Institute, and that proves that all of a sudden that open borders are a great thing. It always ups our economy. It does a great job. They commit less crime and blah, blah, blah. It's garbage. Look, can immigration help our economy? Absolutely. It certainly can. But it has to be regulated. You can't just have open borders. We had 16,000 people a month at one point when I last checked that were trying to get into this country. How much do you think that number would increase if all of a sudden we say, hey, free education, hey, free, welfare for everyone that gets here, free Medicare for everyone that gets here. And by the way, it's open borders. You'll no longer be sent back. If we have 60,000 people coming now and they know that they don't get that stuff and there's a good shot that they could get in trouble legally, what do you think that number is going to become once they find out, oh, we're actually being encouraged to come? And no, I'm not trying to say, oh, that means that, dirty, poor people, the bad for the environment. What I was trying to say is that when you have too many people of a low income status coming in, they're harder on natural resources. And we have a finite amount of natural resources. And you could look at the desert where people are crossing now. The idea of, we'll make it legal and then they won't be damaging those resources. That's not true. We can see that oftentimes, look at places like San Francisco, for example. How's that look? How's the environment look in San Francisco right now with so many poor people living on the street? Not too good, does it? It has nothing to do with their ethnicity, religion, anything like that. It has to do when you're poor, you're struggling to survive. And one of the easiest ways to survive is to use natural resources in the most efficient way possible, which isn't green energy and things like that. Let's see what the chat says. Yeah, Vita, I think it's going to be one-on-one or maybe a panel of 4 from now on. I can't do this, the stupidity of that. Yeah, I'm glad you're here, Jerome Tech. Let's see. Yeah, why do we leave the left control the Overton window? And that's exactly what these panels are. Now, notice every time I bring up the coup or I bring up the actions of Black Lives Matter, no, we can't talk about that. That's off topic. Right. Because when we're talking about fascism, talking about the previous administration weaponizing the intel agency to spy on his opponent, that's not relevant to fascism, apparently. But they don't want to talk about things like that. They have to control the direction of the conversation. And some of the topics, it's like, what the hell do you want us to say? Topic 1. Should we consider people's platforms before voting for them? Yeah? Okay. Question 2. Yeah, it's like, what? Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to get through the chat here. Thanks, Dylan. And there's Dylan. I really like Dylan, who I think's decent. Look, he might disagree with my positions, but at least he's willing to hear me out, right? And it's oftentimes when you're getting interrupted in things, it's hard to come up with a coherent argument the way, especially if it's nuanced. And I think that I try to make nuanced arguments. I'm not some white nationalist or something like that. When I'm talking about, I say this all the time. I didn't get a chance to articulate my feelings, particularly on immigration. But for example, here's what I think on immigration. I think that people that say, oh no, America first means that, somehow if you were born in America, that makes you more American than someone who came here legally. I totally disagree. Some of the best Americans I know are legal immigrants. I even said on that topic, I don't mind if there's jobs that we can't find Americans to fill to importing skilled labor from other countries. I don't mind that. But I have questions about what something like open borders would lead to, and I think it would be an unmitigated disaster. I really do. However, you notice that I'm not yet, me and Dylan aren't yelling at each other. We're not having a crazy, argument about that. We're just saying, I don't even think he's for open borders. But you can see, the point is that we're not specifically trying to, get in an argument with it. Yeah, leftist says Prime was being condescending, acting like he was being fair and nice. It was a joke. It kind of was. And look, I ultimately think Prime's a decent person. Demon Mama's probably a decent person too. I don't know. But I understand in the context of debate, I get snarky as well. But there has to be some sort of fair moderation or it just becomes a mess. I don't know what these panels are supposed to become. And this is what I say, when they always ask me to do, the walk-on panels. The problem with the walk-on panel is I don't mind being 1 against 10. I don't mind. But you have to give me time to develop my argument. You can't give me 1 minute and then give 10 other people 1 minute and then expect me to respond to their 10 minutes in 1 minute. Because all 10 of them are saying something different. Okay. How do I respond to that? Let's see. Right, that's right, Sarge. They interrupted and wouldn't let me speak. And that's fine. I'm not asking Prime to, Prime could have let me and Demon Mama go back and forth. That's fine. I don't mind that. But what I find strange is, why is it only the thing... it wasn't like I literally have been on... panels with Prime where people said really heinous stuff from the right, like we should put machine guns up at the border and shoot everyone that tries to cross. It's like, whoa, no. That was all right. That wasn't interrupted and stopped. But me trying to point out, like, there's a lot of violence that occurs through the Black Lives Matter movement, or that the Me Too movement was dogmatic. Right, Prime did come on and try to debate me as well. But again, I'm not saying... The reason I left is because if I didn't leave, then I would end up, like, sinking to their level even more, which I did, and I regret sinking to their level the little that I did. But the arrogance that comes from, like, the interrupting and thinking that you're saying something important when you're really not saying anything. It's just challenging. Now, you see people that I debated, like, I debated Dylan last week in foreign policy on this very channel. It didn't get like that. And we were very passionate. Both of us were passionate. I debated Destiny twice, left-wing Twitch streamer. No, it didn't resort to that. He gave me a fair shake. He didn't agree with what I was saying. But somehow, like, I have to just be done with the filibuster there, leaving them to say whatever they want, and then go on and on and on. And now look, I'm sure that they think they got some sort of victory because I left the show. I didn't leave the show because I'm afraid to deal with them. I didn't leave the show because, I left the show because I wasn't getting anything out of it. You don't want me there? You want a left-wing, love fest? Then do it. Fine. That's great. No, I don't want... I just said that one time that you couldn't say something. That's not what happened. We could go back to the tape and see it. And it's just... I don't mind people coming at my arguments harsh. Like, it's fine. But the constant interrupting and stuff like that, it's nonsense. So it is what it is. Right, and that's exactly right, Long Leg Homo Sapien. That's what I'll do. So I'm probably going to do Dylan's panel this Friday, which will be a bigger panel. But Dylan's a good moderator. He really is. Now, you can see from our politics, me and Dylan don't agree on much when it comes to political, but I think Dylan's a very fair moderator. You won't be able to tell what side of the argument Dylan's on by watching him moderate because he does a good job. And, I just don't know. I don't know how I can get, like... Of course we're disagreeing. I don't have a problem with that. Let me be clear. I don't have a problem with Demon Mama or LSP disagreeing with me at all. I don't have a problem with that at all. What I have a problem with is the constant interruption. I don't do that to them, Right, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Dylan's a great... I don't say that lightly. I think that he's one of the best... debate host moderators that I've seen because he makes sure everyone gets heard and he gives everyone a chance to talk, and he doesn't rein in the conversation and say, oh, well, you can't talk about this. Again, it's not like they were like, oh, is Trump a fascism? And I was just like, oh, what do you think about the Pirates' chance to win the World Series? It wasn't that. I was directly responding to the fascism that's coming from the other side. Yes, I was being... Now, in full disclosure, after the context of that debate, did I say the fascists that I see on there and people like on here? Yes, I did say that. That's fine. Like, they accused me of things like that. That's no problem. It's just... I knew, looking at the topics, that and the creation topic, I was just like, yeah, Prime is new at moderating. That's fine. But he has... It'd be one thing if he just lost control, but to actively be participating in like, oh, no, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. Okay, then it's your show, no problem. Then I have nothing to say. I don't know what you want me to say. But, right. I mean, so let me check something real quick here. Oh, more people on Twitch than I normally have, so thanks. Let's see here. 1 second. I just wanted to respond to Dylan. Make sure. Let's see. I'm just reading here. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So I will just say this. There were people that got in touch with me from that panel on Discord that said they didn't like the way I was being treated. So, and you know that there was only one other person that identified on the right. So, yeah. Yeah, I know. That's why Twitch, like, I don't mind the left. Like, I try to go out of my way in good faith and talk to people that disagree with me. I really do try to do that. And I think it's important for the right and the left to reach out and talk to each other. But the other thing is, if people are unwilling to switch, which that's a fair criticism you can make of me as well. I'm not going any closer to Demon Mama's position, for example, of open border Marxism or whatever she wants. Ace says, man up then. Take it on the chin and get your points in when you can. Yeah, that's what I did. But I'm not going to sit there when I'm being censored and not allowed to get my points in. It's not worth my time. What's the point of that? It's nonsense. I got my points in. I made the point. What more is there to say? Sit there and listen to them yell and talk over me? It's nonsense. I am from America, and that's why I go on those panels in the first place. You don't think I know that it's basically going to be 6-on-2 or 7-on-1? Of course I know that. I don't care. I still go on with a smile on my face. I'm polite to everyone. That's what I do. But I'm tired of getting interrupted by people that aren't making a point. Yeah. You're wrong. Oh, it's wrong. I'll respond to everything you're saying. Great. You had a chance to... Did I interrupt them? I let them go on for 3-4 minutes at a time. Didn't interrupt them. I'm sitting here typing, like, it's literally 30 minutes into the debate before I get to say one word. It's okay. I sit there calmly, waited to say my piece. And then I just constantly get interrupted. And so, right. I mean, that's the irony. Like, they're talking about national, if you're against globalism, you know, and this was a discussion I was having with Spice before this. The idea that talking about globalism is a racial dog whistle, or it's dog whistling, or it's code words for white supremacy. No, it's not. Why is it if I'm against a global system? You know what else I'm against global government, which means that I think that people in, like, I don't know, Zimbabwe should have a government that's interested in protecting the people of Zimbabwe first and foremost. And Thailand. I think that the Thailand government should be interested in working for the people of Thailand first and foremost. So how's that white supremacist? Because I'm against a system of global governance controlled by corporations that all of them were claiming were terrible. They're terrible. Oh, I'm not worried about her bullying. I understand that's what they try to do, but they're not very good at it. Right, that's a reasonable position, Sarge. I think that America should. I mean, we have homeless veterans. If someone signs up to serve this country and defend it, it should be the bare minimum that we at least take cost of the medical expenses they've incurred as a result of it. We don't do that in this country. We have homeless people all over the place. We have desperate people that need help. And instead of helping them, we're worried about what? Helping people around the world? You know? Right, and then you get called a bigot and a fascist. Right, that's exactly right. So they adapt the pro-corporate... They say, we hate corporations, but we adapt the pro-corporation policy. So we're all for cheap, illegal immigration. We want open borders. Yep, that's exactly what all the corporations that you claim to hate want. That's exactly what they want. And we're against globalism. Yep, that's exactly what the corporation... Or we're against people talking about globalism. Yep, that's exactly what the corporations want as well. They want a global system of governance. Exactly. That's exactly what they want. Yep, you got it. Yeah, Enderdax is cool. I'm assuming he wasn't happy with how I was being treated. Now, look, let me be critical of myself here. I definitely poured a little gas on the fire at the end there, but I was just tired of it. I don't have to put up with it. Yeah, it is predictable and tiresome. And look, and let me be quite honest with I do this I say this all the time, and I really mean this. I really, really mean this. I do this because I have fun doing it. That's it. I don't have anything to prove. I don't make money. I've had people generously donate to me, but I've put more money into technology, like my computer and stuff, for the show than I've gotten out of the show. Anything I do on YouTube gets demonetized. On places like Twitch, I get like 2-3 people usually watching me at a time. That's fine. I don't care. I'm not going to sit here and whine and moan. People, regardless if I agree with them or not, if they're putting on a show that people like, great. But I just do this because it's fun. I'm not trying to make a career out of it. And I think that I care about my country, and I think that I have a unique take, and I'm humbled that people want to listen to me. All that's true. But the moment that it's like, nah, I'm not having fun doing this, then I'm out. I'm going to be a dad for the first time in January. I'm working 2 jobs. I don't have time to do this stuff a lot. But I try to do it because, I think people have been nice to me, and so I try to put a good faith effort out there. Yeah, the last topic was, is Trump a fascist? And that's right, they do have contempt for Middle America, so. Yeah, it's a tired topic, of course. And they were upset because I was bringing up the fascism directed against him. So, thanks, Rose. I appreciate it. I think I'm an okay speaker. Right. All supporters of Trump are fascist. And that's what I'm talking about. Now, look, and thanks for being on here, Endernex. Look, I was a little upset with being interrupted and stuff like that, but I literally, I was just writing down all this stuff because the point I was going to make was just this. Here's a litany of stuff that we consider fascist, but when you could apply all of that to the other side as well. And maybe we should pull back because one of the things that happens are, once you say this person is fascist, then it's easy to say anyone who supports him is a fascist. And what do we do to fascists? Is it okay to punch him? Yes. And that's kind of the insanity that you see come as a result of that. That's all I was trying to do, was just like, look, it's a fascist thing to say, we're going to control the conversation. We're not going to, we literally have a movement right now that people are self-censoring because they're afraid that if they criticize Black Lives Matter, it could harm their career. It could harm them physically, as people could attack them. We know that that's true, but we have to pretend that it's not the case. And it's nonsense. So yeah, I mean, in the heat of the debate, we're going back and forth at each other, but that doesn't bother me. I don't mind that. What I do mind is the interruption and the fact that I supposedly can't respond. I mean, everything I said was a response. And anyways, the point I was making, if you look at the list, patriotism, believing in American exceptionalism, calling out globalists, responding to protest, interventionism, though Trump's an anti-interventionist, so I don't get that. He said that Mexicans were rapists. He did not say that. He said he groups people as a collective. But we could say that of any political party. And that's certainly the party that's playing more identity politics, for better or worse, is the Democratic Party. Said that there were good people on both sides when there were Nazis. That's not true. That's not what Trump said. He did say there were good people on both sides, but he specifically called out the Nazis. They talked about Comey, but I was just pointing out him asking Comey to be loyal is less of an example of fascism than Obama having Comey, and I don't know if Obama ordered it, but under the Obama administration, Comey going rogue and engaging in a coup against Trump, or even if you think that's too harsh, spying on Trump. Look, we could go until we're blue in the face about this. Rod Rosenstein was interviewed and testified in front of Capitol Hill that said, I would not have signed off on the warrant that led to the spying of Trump's campaign had I known the facts. That means because people in the FBI misled the person in charge, Rod Rosenstein, he ended up having a FISA order to wiretap Trump's campaign. And through the toe-hop rule, that means that Trump himself was wiretapped. That's fascism. That's abusing the authoritarianism in your country, in your systems, in order to go after a political opponent. That's fascism. But they say, me bringing that up, oh, no, that's somehow getting off in the weeds. And asking Comey for loyalty was fascism. And then the example, Umberto Eco says that if you say your enemy is weak and strong at the same time, that's fascism. That's the epitome of what the Democrats have done with Trump. They say he's the dumbest person in the world, but he's the shrewd, he was able to spy for Russia and blah, 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 blah. I mean, they talk about power being centralized in government is a sign of fascism. That's the Democratic Party. They're proposing the biggest increase in the size of government in the history of our country. That's more power for the government. That's the only point I'm trying to make. It's like, look, this question is dumb and it's loaded. And the reason you're saying it's dangerous because once you start to say, oh, this is fascist, Trump's a Nazi, Trump's a fascist, Trump's a racist, and his supporters are fascist, racist, blah, blah, blah. That's how we're seeing the violence. That's exactly what's going on. Let me see. Reading the chat because I'm bad at it. Right, and the moderator didn't interrupt them. So, Trump, honk for Jesus says Trump is a fascist. Trump is not a fascist. I'll tell you one thing that a fascist government wouldn't do. Allow a 4-year, never-ending, meandering investigation into him. A fascist wouldn't do that. That's what happened with Trump. Do you think Hitler would have allowed his predecessors, once he came into power, to be like, now wait. We got to investigate this. We need all this. Impeachment hearings, special counsels, FISA warrants. No, a fascist wouldn't do that. You might think Trump's a bad president. Fine. He's not a fascist. At least comparatively, if you're comparing him to the Democratic Party or the previous administration, he's not a fascist. Obama, for example, locked up more whistleblowers than any president before him combined. Was that fascism? But I don't recall people on the left saying, oh, is fascism an appropriate word for Barack Obama? No, because it's clear that this wasn't, what they're trying to do is make a partisan point out of it. So I responded by showing, look, the other side does it as well. Right, that's exactly right, Rita. It's like they wanted me to come on and be like, I guess Trump's a fascist. Or to just say, well, I don't really believe that, but then let them get away with all these smears. Stay Sharp says, welcome to being a righty on Twitch. Yeah, I know. I know that that's what it's like. And again, let me be quite clear. I don't mind people disagreeing. I don't even mind people picking on me or yelling. Like, just don't interrupt constantly. And it's all right if you interrupt once in a while. I do that too. I get it. But I honestly try to sit there and listen to people, even if I disagree with them. Like, for example, when LSP gave his last point about if I'm for open borders, that's contradictory towards me being someone who supports the Second Amendment. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I didn't interrupt. I was just like, okay, it's his turn to speak. That's the way it goes. Let's see. Let's see. If your support has gone unwavered throughout as president, you're inherently anti-American and a closeted fascist. I disagree with that. I would say the same thing about you with Obama then. And isn't it funny? This is, again, it's ironic because the people that are saying this, I think it's funny. To me, it's funny because if you go back to that conversation we were having about dogma and about whether or not you would vote for someone if they were a creationist, if they believed in God, right? You could see the dogma literally that comes from people on here. Like just in this room, Trump's a fascist. And the same in that panel. Trump's a fascist. Trump's a fascist. Oh, really? What makes him a fascist? Well, xenophobic. He's trying to pull out of wars. Oh, xenophobic. Like, it doesn't matter. If Trump would have increased troops to Afghanistan, they'd have said, see, here he goes. If he tries to pull them out, they're like, see, fascist. It's nonsense. To me, the party that's closer to fascism is the one that weaponized the intel community and engaged in a coup against Donald Trump. To me, the party that's closest to fascism is the party that you can't criticize for fear of losing your job or for fear of being attacked. I don't know if fascism's the right word for that. It could be, just authoritarianism, but it reeks of Mao's China. We have brown shirts that'll burn down your house or your building if you disagree with them. They'll seek to get you fired. That happened to me. People threatening to call my employers and get me fired. You have people censoring you, saying what you can and can't talk about. You have people advocating open violence on you if you support someone because you must be a fascist. That's fascism. Antifa that claims to be anti-fascist uses fascist tactics. That's exactly what they do. They use violence and intimidation to shut up people that disagree with them. That's what they do. They go out of their way to go to conservative rallies and attack them. But when it comes to actual potential fascist policies, even if you agree with them, such as you can't leave your house, you can't go to church, you can't go to work, those type of policies, where was Antifa to be found? Oh, nowhere. When it comes to actual government overreach or potential government overreach, they're nowhere to be found. Impatient Lynn says Trump embraces authoritarian police state and should be hung by the neck like the Nazi is. Thanks for being here. I hope your opinion gets out before November. We need people like you out there. Get on a bullhorn, talk as loud as you can. That's fantastic. It'll really help wonders, so go for it. Show the definition of fascism on the stream. Why? A political philosophy, movement, or regime such as that of the fascista that exalts nation and often race above the individual and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Okay. A movement or regime that exalts nation. Okay, you could say Trump's pro-nation, but it doesn't mean any movement that exalts nation would be fascist. Or race. Which movement is exalting race right now? Oh, that's the Democrats that focus only on your skin color. Above the individual. Yes, that's exactly what the left has done with identity politics. Your gender, your race, things like that are exalted over the individual. Okay, so that's more the left than the right. And stands for centralized autocratic government. Yes, that's the Democrats that want a huge government that's in control of everything. They want an even bigger government. That's exactly what they're trying to do. Headed by a dictatorial leader. Well, Trump's not a dictator. If Trump was a dictator, there wouldn't be never-ending investigations against him. He wouldn't have been spied upon by his own intel agency. In fact, it would be more dictatorial to weaponize your intel agency to spy on your opponent. That's what the Democrats did. Severe economic and social regimentation. Have you read the Green New Deal? And their economic regimentation, social regimentation? You mean like the Democrats that are demanding that we all be locked down right now? And forcible suppression of opposition. Can you complain about Trump and the Republicans without fear of your business being burnt down or fear of being fired? Yes. Can you do the same with the Democrats? And Black Lives Matter? Right, I agree with you, Sharp. Yeah, and we could talk, like the COVID, that's the point, though. You could disagree without yelling and screaming. And there are things, I've certainly disagreed with some of Trump's thing. Right, Long Leg Hope and Sapien, I agree. I think the word fascist is being... The point of bringing up how the Democrats meet the definition even more is to show, like, look, maybe we should hold back. And I ain't saying that my friends that are out there voting Democrat must be fascist. I'm not saying that. Nor am I saying that it's okay to use physical violence on groups like that. That's also not what I'm saying. So, it is exactly what Antifa's doing. That's exactly right. I did show the definition of fascism, but I'm a little behind. Impashalin, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, says forcible suppression of opposition. Trump totally didn't tell states to go out and arrest peaceful protesters. No, he didn't. He talked about rioters. That's exactly what he told them to do. And he was absolutely right. Meanwhile, you have the Democrats that are allowing their brown shirts to go out and threaten and burn down buildings and businesses and attack people. Over 30 people have died as the result of the riots since they've began. At least some of the numbers I showed. At least over a dozen, but I think the number's up to 30. Including telling things like, I don't know, telling white people that they have to leave their homes and give them to black people, writing all cops are bastards, writing cancel white people, seceding from the union and setting up a place that was defended by the local Democratic mayor, which then audio showed that their police force that they created shot 2 unarmed black teenagers in a car, and then when one was still breathing said, yo, he's still breathing, and put 3 more bullets in him to make sure that he was dead. And that was called a summer of love by the Democrat that was in charge of that. Yes, that should be stopped. Yes, we should be using force to stop those sorts of things. Would you have thought if Barack Obama stopped, for example, if Obama was president and Charlottesville happened day 1, would you have said day 2, after Heather Heyer was killed, would you have said, it would be fascism for Obama to step in there and want to stop these peaceful protesters? Is that what you would have said? You would have said, no, someone died and they engaged in mass violence and it needs to end. That's what you would have said. Green New Deal is isn't it economic and social regimentation? I don't think it's fascism, no. But according to the definition, it's closer to fascism than what Trump is. check the link you sent. I don't see it, bud. Resend it and I'll try. Where'd you send it? On the chat here? Protesting is a right. Rioting and burning stuff down is not a right. Oh, this is Eco's list. Yeah, I've seen this before. We can go through it if you want. This is what they were referencing. Umberto Eco. If it loads. I don't know if it's going to load, sir. Oh, there. Maybe it came. We can go through the list real quick if you want. So he says, 1, the cult of tradition. Well, you could say that of the Republicans. Certainly you see them talking about how history is important. But there also seems to be a cult of tradition that's occurring on the left as well, such as the 1619 Project. The rejection of modernism. The Enlightenment, the Age of Reason is seen as the beginning of modern depravity. Which side's against the Enlightenment? We literally have Black Lives Matter people and critical race theorists in schools that are saying we're against the Enlightenment because it's Eurocentric and it's a bunch of white men. So they're against things like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and they're against the Enlightenment. The call to action for action's sake. Do you see people burning down buildings right now? Disagreement's treason. We were just told that you're a Trump supporter, you're a fascist, and you deserve to be attacked. They accuse Trump of treason all the time. They accused him of being a spy for Putin. Why? Because he didn't want to get us in a conflict with Putin. Fear of difference. Yes, exactly. You saw it in the panel tonight. Not just fear of difference in how you look, but fear of difference of opinion. That's where cancel culture comes from, especially in academia, because they don't want a difference of opinion. That's why 90% plus of people in academia, as far as professors and as far as the administrators, are from the left. Appeal to social frustration. Do we see any of that occurring on the left? Any social frustration that you see appeals being made to? You know, the people burning down cities? Obsession with a plot. The followers must feel besieged. The easiest way to solve the plot is appeal to xenophobia. Russians under every bed, right? Oh, that's the Democrats again. The enemy's both strong and weak. We went over that. Pacifism is tracking with the enemy. Who says that? That's again the left. We need violence. They had to burn down the police precinct. Exactly. You can't be passive. If you don't fight, then you're helping the enemy. Contempt for the weak. Now, this one, they have contempt, for example, for poor people that don't meet the classification of the group that they've talked about. Absolute contempt. You can hear when they talk about flyover country, 10-tooth rubes clinging to their guns and Bibles, uneducated Trump supporters, deplorables. 11, everyone's educated to become a hero. That's our academia with the left. This is what Jordan Peterson fights back against. Get your own world in order first before you go out and be a hero and solve all the problems of the world. That's exactly what the left is doing. Machismo and weaponry. You see it on both sides. Certainly, I'm not going to say that you don't see this on the right, but you see it in the left as well with a bunch of tough guy Antifa, Black Lives Matter people. Selective populism. Yep. Black Lives Matter. They have no problem. They're right now repealing Proposition 209 in California that says that we shouldn't prefer or discriminate based on race, gender. Your fascism speaks newspeak. All the Nazi and fascist schoolbooks make use of an impoverished vocabulary and elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments of complex and critical reasoning. Yeah, oversimplification of, for example, everything is a result of the patriarchy. That would be an example of this. Now, am I saying that everyone on the left's a fascist? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I think I can make a case to all 14 of those, or at least the majority of them, why the Democratic Party's worse. Let's see where I was here in the chat. Thanks, man. Thanks for the people. Aren't a majority of protests peaceful? Well, it depends. Yes, I would say that's certainly true. For example, there was a protest in my town. It was allowed to go on without a hitch. Most of the protests, they get permits and things like that, were absolutely peaceful, and there was nothing done violent against them. Were there sometimes where cops went out and did something that they shouldn't have? Absolutely. Arrest those cops if they do it. Fine. Trump didn't order them to do that. Trump looked at our cities burning and no one doing anything. And I get it that this is the narrative that the left wing, you wouldn't know this if you just follow the left wing media, but if you follow someone like Michael Tracy, Trump hater, is not going to vote for Trump, despises him, Democrat, he actually went town to all these towns and was shocked at the devastation and destruction he saw in primarily inner city people of color communities. And that no one was covering how much damage was done. He's shocked. Person after person. He's interviewed. You can see it on his, like he's done stories where he's written what they said. He's taken video of them. Just being like, man, don't get me wrong. I don't always like the cops, but come on, man. We can't be burning down our cities. I'll never rebuild our counties. But it's just ignored. So yes, just because the majority are peaceful, that's not who we're talking about stopping. Meanwhile, we have Democratic mayors and a Democratic complicit media that's just acting like that's not happening. I'd debate Demon Mama one-on-one. That's fine. Yeah, I know that communist terrorism goes really deep, right? And I get it. Look, I get that there's, like, when we look at communism versus Nazis, I get that it's easier to condemn Nazism because that had a racial identitarian part to it that we all agree is horrible, right? But with communism, they tried to at least speak for the downtrodden. That was their claim. But they actually made things worse for the downtrodden. That's exactly what we see. But they used violence, intimidation, demonizing, all of these things that we just listed that would be fascism, but they used it in a communistic framework. No, it's not disingenuous to focus on outliers when the movement as a whole is peaceful. Would you say the majority of people in Charlottesville didn't run over someone with a car? Therefore, why'd the media cover Charlottesville? Huh. The majority of white supremacists rallies don't end in violence. The reason that we focus on them is because they're so devastating. So if there's 10,000 protests and only 1,000 kill a bunch of people, we still focus on those 1,000. Literally nobody in the mainstream Democratic Party is pro-violence. That's not true at all. Not true at all. Then why aren't they condemning it? Why did Jerry Nadler say it was a myth? They see that it's occurring. They have no problem with it. People like Maxine Waters said, chase them out of restaurants. Don't leave them. Keep it going. We've had people, the Pulitzer Prize winner for the New York Times said, well, this isn't violence. We shouldn't use the word violence for this sort of property destruction. We need another word for it. Do I really think that National Socialism is only one racial identity? No. But there certainly was racial aspects to it. They didn't like the Jews, right? It's easy to condemn something when you see that it says this group of people based on their ethnicity is evil. That's easier to condemn than this group of people based on their wealth is evil. Both are terrible. Both ended up being terrible systems, don't get me wrong. Okay. All right, Tiberius, I'll come over if you don't mind if I stream it too. Let me come over there for a minute. Open up. Discord here. Oh, yeah, I don't know how to do the raid thing. Someone's asked me to raid Dylan. If everyone that's on Twitch could go over to Dylan Burns TV, he's trying to get so many viewers. I'll try to figure out the raid thing. I really will. Let me see here. Tiberius, conversation. Let me get my headset in.
shit.
But
Now I might have to stay.
Back to what I was saying real quick though. I think that the goal should be to reform and rehabilitate, and not be just a punitive system.
Yeah, there should be like a pathway for them to get back into society, and like
if you
the
can
problem
prove
with
that
prisons right now is when people go to prison and they'll end up becoming
worse
worse
than they started
'cause-
off with.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you there. Like they're around other criminals, they find out different ways to be more lucrative ways to do what they're doing. But I think it's to be more rehabilitative for certain people. But there's a portion that you just can't do that to.
So I
what
hear
to do with OC.
I hear that the panel was a little rough, Rob.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh,
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were on a panel?
Yeah,
PrimeCayes panel,
on
Riviera.
PrimeCayes channel. Yeah, it did not go so well today. I don't know. It's just, look, I don't mind people interrupting and getting back and forth and, accusing you of stuff. That stuff's fine. But when the moderator consistently is like, oh, no, you can't respond. And you know how it is, Tiberius. You get in these panels, and by the nature of it, it's Twitch, I get it. It's going to be mostly left-wing people, no problem. But they talk for 25 minutes while I sit there quietly. And then, I start to respond, and 2 minutes in, they're like, no, shut it down. Then why am I here?
You ain't the only one.
Hey, Rob. This is why you come onto my panel and not their panel.
well.
It's like you get time to talk here, whether you're righty or lefty.
That's
why
what
you-
happens.
Rob,
Well,
that's
no,
why
but
you
for the
need a
most
Whoa,
part-
whoa,
big
no. I'm going to ask this because you just insulted my honor, sir. Who have I shut down for bad political
Not
opinions?
you, but it happens on this panel.
Well, it depends on how many
some
lefties are on.
Some people get talked over, don't get me wrong, and sometimes I do have a problem where it's like, oh shit,
Oh, okay. I'll admit, in Tiberius's chat, I have told him several times to tell Lunchbox to shut up. Because half the time when Lunchbox talks, he's just digging his grave a bit deeper.
Anyway.
He'll cut people off.
Look, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, some people come in here with big dick energy and they just like dominate the conversation. This guy named Pisco, you might be familiar with, literally like turns it into the Pisco show. But you know what? That's part of it. I will moderate. I will give you your turn to talk. And if I think people are just legitimately talking over each other to the point where it's obnoxious, I'll shut it down. But moreover or not, it's like, hey, I want people to, if you have something to say, talk. True. Rob is a badass. We love Rob. And Rob, I would love to have you here a lot more because I do miss you, sir. Like, you are on my heaviest hitter list, and I don't see you.
Well, thanks.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a dad in January, for the first time, so I got 2 jobs now, so I just don't have a lot of time. Prime's always been cool to me, and they keep asking me to do these panels, so I was like, okay, I'm at work right now, but I was like, fine, no preparation, I'll go on. And, like, you get these topics, it's like, is Trump a fascist, or does he just act like a fascist? It's like, come on. Like, that's, what you're asking for, I agree, Sharpie is
today
cool.
is...
Hey,
Trump,
time to make...
Is it bad that Trump beats his wife?
Yeah, exactly. Or, like, should we... I mean, look, I'll say something right here. I didn't say it in the panel. I should have said this. But the hypocrisy and the lack of self-awareness, for example, the second topic was, should we not vote for someone if they believe in creationism? I'm not the most religious person in the world, but I'm religious, I guess. And just listening to the arrogance of like, well, if you believe in God, blah, 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 you're anti-science. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to start a crap show, but let me just put it this way. There are a substantial group of people that believe the trans movement is not based in science. How would it feel if I came on a panel and said, oh, because of your beliefs on trans, I view you as anti-science, therefore I don't think you should be in the political discourse. No, they wouldn't look on that favorably. But as someone who is Christian, I have to sit there and listen to them, and it's like, it just seems to me like there's this, it's always geared in this antagonistic way, which I love. I revel in that. But then when it's time for me to respond, they're like, no, just stick to the topic. How bad do you think Trump beats his wife? Well, I actually don't. Oh, if you could just stick to the topic about Trump beating his wife, I don't know how I'm supposed to respond,
Hey, time to make Tiberius mad. Hey, Rob, what do you think about, the Kenosha incident? Come on.
The Kenosha incident?
Wisconsin shooting.
Oh!
I don't have enough information to make a judgment.
Yeah, that's all I'll say. Probably the reaction where we actually see the riots and stuff, even if it was a bad shoot by the cops, is not good. It's never good because things like that detract from actually getting justice if it was needed. But I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen any footage. I've been working nonstop, so I don't know if the police were egregious or not. I don't know.
I've seen one film angle, and I have no idea anything leading up to the video being shot. And I can't see the suspect the 2 seconds before he shot. Dude could have whipped off his sweater vest and had C4 strapped to his body. I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
so I
see,
can't
the
make
one
a
with the
judgment.
vehicle?
I'm a leftist, and I don't think cops inherently are bad. I think that it's a lack of training, and it's a lack of understanding of the social dynamic that is going on.
Although
And
I will say,
label me as whatever you will, but I'm just saying, I don't think cops inherently are bad. Those that are bad need to be rooted out and gotten rid of, absolutely. But I don't believe that the police are inherently bad.
Well, right.
Personally, I think that we need to reallocate funds within the police, because I think the police some police departments at least have enough money. They just spend it on stupid shit like tanks instead of police training.
Yeah,
Have you seen Americans? Have you seen the shit that they're armed with? Because gun control isn't all completely a thing. Sometimes they need fucking tanks.
You remember that?
Yeah, cause I'm with Tiberius on that one because you're talking to someone who actually owns an M82, which is a 50 cal sniper, 50 cal rifle, anti-material rifle. I can shoot through those fucking vehicles and even bust their fucking engine block with that son of a bitch.
Okay,
you're talking about a bullet that's that fucking long.
Well, let me say this too about this specific incident. The media and the Democrats and Black Lives Matter are their own worst enemy because what they've done is they've chosen to
Democrats into that, though. By the way,
well, because
Democrats into that?
Well, because that's who brings awareness to these cop incidents, right? So let me give you an example. They point to
but you see, you label us all as one, though. But I don't like.
Well, no. I hear you, Shadow. Here's the problem.
Shadow, let him finish.
As humans, we inevitably have to use labels. It just is. I couldn't sit here and say, here's every person that does this. So yeah, I agree. You could be a Democrat and not do this. I don't mean that. I mean the people that are basically in charge of the Democratic Party. So for example, take the Michael Brown situation. Now we know through forensic evidence, eyewitness evidence, that was garbage. Hands up, don't shoot was a lie. But they pushed that on us. Then you see this guy that was shot in Atlanta that took the cop's taser, was running, shot the taser at the cop. When they take those issues and they're like, see, this is a murder. What that does to the average person's like, but wait a minute, that's different than what happened to George Floyd. And so now the next issue that comes up, there's tons of people that have the preconception of, oh, is this just another one of those Michael Brown incidents where they're trying to bring up racial division? It might not be. This could be the real deal. The cops doing something wrong. But as long as we're conditioned to constantly say every time a black person's shot by the cops, it must be horrible, evil, racist cops, then we're never going to be able to get to the root of the problem.
Yeah, just so you all just for a reference, if you go look in Tiberius's general chat, I posted an image of all the different calibers, and then you can look at how big a 50 cal BMG round is. You think any form of armor is gonna stop that? That was originally designed to punch through tanks.
Well, hey, guess who's back? Does anyone want to host up, or does anyone want to roll out from McGrady? Because I know we need a liberal heavy hitter here.
I can drop off.
I gotta leave. I do honestly have to leave. I have to get to bed, so no problem.
If you want to cash out here, Rob, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's good to see you. I wish we could have
you. Rob, I respect you. I like your opinions. I'm not nothing against you, by the way. And I'm a damn lefty according to some people. So just to let you know.
Well, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, Rob,
I believe in. Yep.
There's just a difference, Rob, of you going on Prime show versus going on Dylan's show.
Right.
You know, the reality is, Dylan does a really good job of bringing on 4 on each side and then making topics that can go each way. Whereas kind of the trap that Prime falls into is the majority of people that he has to potentially bring on all pretty much agree. And so then he chooses those kinds of different topics that unfortunately, he brings on one token conservative like you, and then you get drawn into a topic that basically doesn't have any interest to us.
Well, let me just say real quick, I have no hard feelings to Prime, and I could be a jerk as well, but I thought it was over the top today. What was going on?
Yeah, Rob, before you leave, just as your last note, please shout yourself out, both your Twitch channel and your radio show.
Sure. So my radio show is Pennsylvania Patriot Radio. I should have a big announcement on that. I think I could leak it here. I don't care. I think that we bought a new call signal. So the actual, it was 104.7 Williamsport, Saturdays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. But that will probably be changing. My Twitch channel is Normal America with Rob Noor. Yeah, someday I'll be running for president, maybe. And you can find me on YouTube and DLive and places like that with Normal America with Rob Noor. So thanks so much, everyone. You're the best, Tiberius. We'll talk to you all soon.
All right. Have a good one, Rob.
Yep.
All right.
All right. One last thing before I get off. I'm trying to raid Dylan's channel. So what am I supposed to do here? I type /raid and then his name and it'll raid him. Okay, let me try that. /raid. And then do I put it in brackets? For crying out loud. Oh, there we go. I figured it out. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best. Please subscribe if you haven't. I'd really appreciate it. Try to do videos every once in a while, so thanks all. Oh, yeah, I guess I'm still on here. Yeah, if you're new to my channel, please check it out. Normally I'm not as heated as I was today, but yeah, it's something. I am conservative. I'm unabashedly conservative. I'm willing to talk to anyone. I just get a little annoyed with the, what we saw going on today. But I hope you like what I do. Please consider following. I don't think I have a sub button, but please consider following. And all right, thanks so much, everyone. We're gonna raid Dylan now.